The story unfolds in the dark woods, where Prince Chin-Yo-woon is running and attempting to save himself. He ascends the mountain but stumbles, resulting in an injury. He wonders why he cannot move his leg anymore. While struggling to rise, he inquires whether he is being informed that he has been dancing in the middle of his palms from the beginning. Growing angry, the masked warrior sarcastically praises himself, saying, "Well done, Prince Chin-Yo-woon. He must have encountered quite a lot of trouble running for an hour to reach here." Laughter ensues, and the other masked warrior remarks that all the waiting has brought him to the verge of falling asleep. Prince Chin-Yo-woon ponders what he should do now, realizing he lacks the strength to flee. He questions why he abandoned the idea of enrolling in the academy and wonders what more they want from him, why they are targeting his life. Masked warrior queries whether giving up on the academy or lacking talent in martial arts should even matter to someone like him. He asserts that as long as he holds the right to the throne, this remains the only course of action, while he puts his sword at his shoulder. The other masked warrior insists on relinquishing resistance, stating there is no alternative escape route. He declares that even if peasant blood is mixed in him, being of the bloodline of that person should warrant a painless death. Prince Chin-Yo-woon contemplates the notion of peasant blood, reflecting on how they dare dishonor his mother. He is skeptical, believing that these individuals would never grant him a painless death. Considering the inevitability of his demise, he resolves to fight until his last breath. Masked Warrior inquires whether he has acquired martial arts skills from Warrior Guard Jang. Prince Chin-Yo-woon realizes that no, it seems he didn't inherit any skills. However, he acknowledges that he can't escape his bloodline. He expresses determination, stating that even without training or skills, he refuses to surrender until the end, finding the situation exhilarating. Masked Warrior commands them to kill him, and they attack him. He fights back, attempting to defend himself, but the warrior grabs him by the neck, questioning if this is the end of his resistance. Suddenly, Prince Chin-Yo-woon draws his sword, strikes the warrior, killing him, and declares that it serves him right. They are shocked and inquire how a kid who hasn't even mastered martial arts managed to kill one of their members, and if all of those random slashes an act to make them lower their guard. He thinks he managed to pull off such a shrewd act in a situation like this, and what if he has mastered martial arts and a masked warrior runs to attack and abuses him and kicks him and throws him away and he bleeds. Masked Warrior says just because they went easy on him, he dared to do this. The warrior comes closer to him, puts foot on his wound, and asks how it feels to have a hole in his stomach. Prince Chin-Yo-woon thinks as he thought, he can't trick them twice, and says it's alright, at least he killed one of them while he scratched the ground with his hand. The warrior presses his wound and says, "Die an excruciating death." The other warrior responds, stating that such an act isn't his style, but since their comrade died, he supposes there isn't a choice. Suddenly, a light emerges from another direction and strikes, causing the warrior to slice. The other warrior ponders the recent event, describing it as something akin to a beam of white light. An unknown person approaches them, and the warrior alerts his companion that the person is behind them. They move toward him and are ready to attack him. He stands in front of them, and the warrior asks what that is, as he has never seen clothing like that before. One warrior attacks him and asks who he is. He uses his powers and retaliates, killing the warrior. The other warrior ponders what is happening here as he disappears in a second. They wonder if it's an agility skill or not. It seems more like he is becoming invisible, like water, in a second. They contemplate the light, realizing that it is exactly what that light is. The warrior thinks that this is the power of a master who has risen to the highest level, but questions why an extraordinary master like him is defending that stupid. He considers that the kid has already lost a lot of blood, making him a lost cause, and believes their mission has been fulfilled. He decides to retreat and run away. However, the unknown person attacks him and kills him. Prince Chin-Yo-woon remarks that it serves them all right and closes his eyes. He thinks it looks like their ancestor is in a happy mood, even though he is on his deathbed. He wonders about the identity of the person and what kind of nonsense he is spouting after appearing all of a sudden. He notes that his eyesight is getting fuzzy and he can't see, feeling his entire body getting frigid. He thinks he is going to die like this. The unknown person asks if they have found him already and replies that he guesses there is no choice while he presses a button on the watch. He says he was going to come here earlier and teach him how to use it, but he guesses they will have to improvise. He adds that he should hurry since he is right about to die. He injects something into him and mentions that he is the one injecting it, causing him to cringe and say all right then. He then asks him about his ancestor Nim, requesting him to ensure success and make this descendant's life easier. He says that this nano machine is the latest version and operating should be simple enough, so good luck learning how to use it. He disappears again. Prince Chin Yo-woon thinks about what kind of nonsense that strange guy has been blabbering about. The system window notifies the serial number ZO344053258893. He thinks there is a strange voice inside his mind. The system window notifies Sky Corporation that's a 7th generation of the Nano machine and its status starting activation. Prince Chin Yo-woon reflects that long ago, fighters of Jianghu leaders' martial arts used it to protect themselves from enemies. Over time, martial arts evolved from being a method of self-defense into a tool for killing enemies, growing more sophisticated and complex as simple forms developed into a series of movements and breathing techniques that represented the basics of internal energy. He reflects that martial artists pass on their teachings and heirlooms to future generations, allowing martial arts to continue evolving. He observes that those who master martial arts are more powerful than ordinary humans and are soon called the Murum people Wulin. He thinks fighters who wanted to be disciples of the Murum people gathered to form clans, and those clans were divided into the forces of justice and the forces of evil. He thinks between the tight balances of those two forces, there was another group that pursued an entirely different route, seeking only strength. He thinks the world called them the demonic cult, and the illegitimate child the highest-ranking family in the demonic cult who has the right to the throne. This is Chin Yo-woon's story. After a while, he opens his eyes and finds himself in a room. He is shocked and says he is alive, but he is sure his stomach was pierced by that sword. He asks what is happening and why his whole body is sweating. He looks at his hand and asks what this is and what these black spots are. He thinks it smells awful and his whole body is sticky. He hears a system voice saying, "He is awake, master." He looks around and asks who the voice belongs to. He thinks there is not anyone around. What is it? The voice says, "Please calm down, master." He considers telepathy and realizes that he has heard of it before, but this is different. He notes that it sounds like it is coming directly from his head. He ponders the sound again, and the voice says he is the right master. He shouts again, asking who it is. Nano Machine explains that it connects and serves as a core to support the master's brain, and it is Sky Corporation's 7th generation Nano Machine. He shouts, asking what it is talking about, who it is, and why it is doing this to him. Nano Machine says he's the 7th generation Nano Machine. He inquires about Nano and the evil god. Nano Machine confirms that it is indeed a Nano Machine. Again, he thinks it is talking about the evil god, the one that the demonic cult worships. He sits on the floor and shouts, declaring that he is really the evil god. After a while, Guard Jang says this way to Dr. Beak. "Dr. Beak, it is an assassination attempt." Guard Jang agrees, mentioning that there have been many assassination attempts recently. He says he doesn't think that they would send him directly there. Dr. Beak responds, stating that of course it would have to be their first-class Guard Jang, and it is the only thing they could have done. He says it is a miracle that Prince Chin Yo-woon can make it out alive. Guard Jang adds that he thinks someone helped Prince Chin Yo-woon, but he can't tell who it was that helped him. Dr. Beak asks if he can't guess to some extent based on the markings. He agrees with him. He thinks that the scene he saw yesterday was terrible. On the cold ground, without their upper bodies, were the corpses of men from the demonic cult. He thinks among them is one who still has his upper body intact, but the dagger that he gives to Prince Chin Yo-woon is stuck in his head. He then hears someone's breathing, and in a place not too far away, through the pools of blood, he can recognize right away that it is Prince Chin Yo-woon. The Dr. Beak says, but he has no wound on his body. Guard Jang agrees with him and states that Prince Chin Yo-woon's breathing is like he is sound asleep, and his clothes are clearly torn by a sword, but Prince Chin Yo-woon's body is clean of any marks. Dr. Beak asks who could have helped him. There's no way the cult leader would involve himself in a fight like this. He appears confused. Dr. Beak laughs and says this is getting interesting, quickly leading him to Prince Chin Yo-woon's room. Prince Chin Yo-woon asks if he is the one who saved his life, God. Nano Machine responds that if he is talking about the one who saved him from the enemies that are after him, then no. Nano Machine clarifies that if he is referring to putting the master's dying body into self-healing mode, then yes. He asks what is meant by self-healing mode. Nanomachine explains that it involves sending basic information to the master's brain. He asks what is with the master. Nanomachine responds that it is searching for the right words for this era and culture. Nanomachine reassures him that he's not the evil god that he speaks of. He thinks that his tone has changed and says if he is not the evil god, then who it is. Nanomachine says he's trying to send him the basic information and manual about him to his brain and asks him to accept. He agrees with Nanomachine. Prince Chin-Yo-woon starts vomiting, and Nanomachine says this is a natural reaction when he first receives the information in his brain, and he will not feel dizzy or nauseous starting the second time. Prince Chin-Yo-woon cries and, feeling dizzy, asks what is happening to him. He inquires about the nanomachine and asks if it is true that thousands of machines are now embedded in his body. Nanomachine agrees with him and tells him that's correct, and specifically 6,482,040,000 nanomachines have been placed in his body. Prince Chin-Yo-woon thinks what this is and says it is not human or a god. He asks if he wants them to get out of his body. Nanomachine says that as he sees the information that was sent, it is programmed to only be extracted outside the body in case he dies. He thinks his so-called half-brothers are very desperate to kill him, who doesn't even have any strength, and now there is a fully unidentified nanomachine in his body. He thinks about why this happened to him and asks, so then, who put it into his body? Guard Jang knocks on the door and says Dr. Beak is here. Prince Chin-Yo-woon says to stay quiet, Nanomachine. He thinks they will think he is weird if they see him talking to a voice inside his head. Nanomachine says it can read his thoughts to communicate, and it temporarily goes into silent mode. Prince Chin-Yo-woon whispers he gets it, so just be quiet now. Guard Jang says the prince seems to be asleep, so they have to stay quiet. Guard Jang asks him, Prince, he is awake, it seems his body is awake. He smells something and asks what this smell is. Prince Chin-Yo-woon thinks he has forgotten about that. Dr. Beak says Prince Chin-Yo-woon, they have met before. He agrees and asks how he could forget the doctor who came to see him when his mother was sick. Dr. Beak states he is going to feel his pulse and gives him his hand. He responds it's okay to give him his hand. Prince Chin-Yo-woon gives him his hand. Dr. Beak holds his hand and says, this is very strange. Guard Jang wonders him what he means if something bad happens to the prince. The doctor says no, it's quite the opposite. This could be a rare opportunity for Prince Chin-Yo-woon. He asks what he is saying. Dr. Beak states that his entire body has been cleansed of any dirty substances and his energy flow has been activated. He inquires if he takes some kind of special medicine. Prince Chin-Yo-woon asks for clarification and mentions he is not sure what is being said. The doctor asserts that now he has the perfect body to train in martial arts. He contemplates the black sticky spots, considering them waste that comes out of his body. He notices the nanomachine and asks how it works. The nanomachine instructs him to deactivate silent mode. He complies. The nanomachine confirms that silent mode has been deactivated, and it explains that the nanomachines placed throughout his entire body have extracted waste from his body and reshaped the blood vessels, joints, and muscles to best fit his body shape. Now he appears content and seeks confirmation. He reflects that he is not an evil god. The nanomachine clarifies that it is not an evil god, but a machine. He reflects that although the demonic cult is made up of many clans and families, only 6 among them are main clans. He recalls that the Lord is bound by an oath to marry a woman from each of the 6 clans to give birth to his descendants, and the descendants born in each clan are raised in their respective clans. When they reach a certain age, they are admitted to the demonic academy. He recalls that the Demonic Academy, which opens every 10 years, is headed by the leading experts from the magistrate and was founded to train the best warriors of each generation. He remembers that there was a period of unusually intense competition. Whenever several princes joined the academy, it was referred to as the period of the Battle of the Heirs by the magistrates. Prince Chin-Yo-woon smiles and wonders if he is indeed sure that he is not an evil god. Nanomachine notifies him that he is not an evil god, but a machine. He reflects that Dr. Beak is from the Poison Clan, and he needs to hide the fact that the nanomachine is in his body. The nanomachine assures him that the technology of this era will not be able to detect his presence, Master. Dr. Beak remarks that it is certain that he received help from someone. He notes that there seems to be nothing wrong with his body, but mentions he will prescribe him a tonic that will help him regain his energy. Guard Jang expresses gratitude to Dr. Beak and asks if he is leaving, offering to see him out. Dr. Beak declines, stating it's fine and that he doesn't need to come out and should instead watch over the prince. He reflects that it's very strange how a person can change like that and remembers that long ago, he was sure that he would be pushed out of the ranks with his weak body and lack of knowledge of martial arts. But now, with the current state of his body, he could probably learn martial arts better than any of the other princes. Dr. Beak walks out and reflects that he is, after all, an illegitimate child of the Lord, pretending not to care while taking an interest in it. He considers that if the Lord has secretly helped him, then there is no need for him to acknowledge it. He anticipates that the soon-to-be-open demonic academy will be nosy. Prince Chin-Yo-woon thinks that he doesn't believe he has caught on. He reflects that, come to think of it, the reason why he is alive is all thanks to Guard Jang, even though the nano machine healed him. He contemplates that if Guard Jang hadn't come on time, he tries to thank him, but Guard Jang refuses and apologizes to the prince, mentioning he thinks he should wash up first while pinching his nose. Prince Chin-Yo-woon smiles and acknowledges that he really should. He takes a bath and converses with a nanomachine. He recalls that earlier he had asked how much his body could heal if he put it in a self-healing mode. The nanomachine explains that any internal or external wound caused by an external impact can be healed quickly, but blood loss or decapitation will take much more time since they require cell division. Prince Chin-Yo-woon wonders why it keeps saying things that are hard to understand. Meanwhile, he considers that it should be fine if he tries to test it out, right? He cuts his hand, and it starts bleeding, causing him to exclaim in pain. The nanomachine instructs him to activate self-healing mode on the left palm for a stab wound, and it heals. He reflects that even though he just witnessed it, it's hard to believe, but now he knows that it works. He recalls the information transferred to his head earlier and realizes he can really use all of these functions. The nanomachine confirms he can use everything shown in the instructions. He thinks it's amazing and decides he will have to try it out once he finishes his bath. He thinks, wait, nanomachine, this doesn't make sense, and notices his body has suddenly become muscular and toned, asking if it does this too. Nanomachine confirms it and explains that it has reconstructed his body. He wonders what is meant by reconstruction. An old man enters the room and informs him that he is here to dress him. He instructs the old man to proceed. Meanwhile, Nanomachine explains that while it is scientifically impossible to create something out of nothing, it is not difficult to reconstruct an existing part of his body. As the old man dresses him, he thinks the words Nanomachine chooses are so complicated that listening to him makes him feel like everything he has learned is useless. He converses with Nanomachine and asks if it's okay to call it Nano since its name is so long. Nanomachine updates its new name to Nano. He thinks it's not fun. This is his study, and he wonders what he should do now. Nanomachine instructs him to look into a book and flip through each page. He thinks he should just flip through it, that's all. Nanomachine agrees. He takes a book and reflects that the only books there related to martial arts are about blood points. He considers that the 3-ism is a breathing method designed to train the mind and body, but even if he practices for the first time in his life, it is still difficult to achieve the lowest level. He decides that reading about blood points seems to be better. He thinks he is starting with Nano. Nanomachine agrees and states please start. He flips the page and thinks he has finished flipping through it. Nanomachine confirms that he has successfully scanned the book Blood Passage, attempting to transfer the information to the user's brain, and asks him to accept it. He considers scanning and requests it to copy all of its information. Nanomachine confirms that this is correct and asks him to accept it. He accepts, and Nanomachine scans the whole book and transfers the complete information. Prince Chin-Yo-woon laughs, and Nanomachine assures him that he will soon get used to it. He asks if Nanomachine is worried about it. Nanomachine replies that he is just starting, in fact. He jests with it and asks what he should do now. Nanomachine explains that if he wishes to use the acquired knowledge, he has to think about it to bring it up. He explains that blood points play an important role in the flow of blood in the veins and arteries of the body and can simply be called blood. There are 2 different types of points, those that can immobilize and those that can kill. He explains that if a point that can immobilize is poked at the body, the person will be immobilized, which can. He exclaims, "No way, this is crazy," and realizes it's not just memorization. He can fully understand the content. Nano Machine explains that it transferred the information over after correcting the errors in the book. He wonders about the errors and realizes there are things that are wrong. Nano Machine informs him that, based on the information in the program, it corrected an error about blood points. Surprised, he says he can't believe this and asks if this doesn't mean that he can learn and master martial arts faster than everyone else. He laughs and reflects that the candidates of the 6 clans have mastered many fighting techniques since they were breastfed, and even after watching these individuals, he still couldn't master the 3 Yisim methods. He considers that there aren't many books on martial arts in his study, but he has heard that there are many in the demonic academy. With this ability, he thinks he is going to become stronger faster than anyone else in the academy and decides that's going to be his goal now. The scene shifts to the chamber of the heir candidate, South Castle of the demonic cult house of Bakmajong, where Prince Mukium mentions that he sent them all to get rid of one boy, but all 5 of them are dead. He asks if it makes sense. The warrior responds that he thinks someone secretly helped him. Prince Mukium shouts and asks how he dares to call his name at his own will. He replies that he's sorry. Prince Mukium says he thought since he is stupid of low blood, he would be easy to kill, but it seems like he has something up his sleeve. He wonders if he even tried to get rid of that guard, but there is someone else protecting him too. He comments that he doesn't want to get his hands dirty, but he has no choice now and he will have to kill him by himself at the demonic academy. Prince Chen Yo-woon lies on his bed and thinks that he can't sleep at all because of how nervous he is. He takes out his hand from the window and asks if it is morning yet. He looks outside while saying it is the day when he joins the academy. He looks at Guard Jang, who is practicing. He thinks it would have been better if he had secretly learned Guard Jang's dagger techniques. Then he refuses and thinks people from the 6 clans that watch them won't leave him alone. He thinks when his mother passed away, he made an oath not to learn martial arts until he was admitted into the academy. Nano Machine calls him and asks if he would like it to scan Guard Jang's movements. He is shocked and asks if it can scan the movement of other people. Nano Machine confirms that. He asks, then does that mean it can scan Guard Jang's martial arts training and transfer it into his mind? Nano Machine says that is possible if the program also has data on various martial arts techniques that it can transfer over to him, and says he can even transfer it to him right now. He thinks for a while and asks if it is okay to steal Guard Jang's martial arts techniques without his permission, but cancels this idea. He thinks in the afternoon he is going to have to go to the academy without any regrets, and he thinks he doesn't have time to think about what he can use to protect himself. He orders Nano Machine to scan it. Nano Machine activates the movement scan. The Nano Machine scans all of Guard Jang's techniques. Nano Machine says the scanning time is approximately half an hour. After a while, Nano Machine says movement scanning has been completed and says the beginning of the transfer to the user's brain. He says still, it is more bearable than yesterday while he sits down near the window. He thinks for a while and asks how it can happen and how this is possible and laughs. He runs and takes out his sword. He thinks that he can do it too. He looks outside and says he needs to be careful so that Guard Jang doesn't see. He starts using Guard Jang's techniques and thinks they are the same as Guard Jang's 20 years of training while he starts practicing. He thinks about training every day, straightening his posture and mastering it with his body. He asks if this doesn't allow him to completely ignore these processes. Nano Machine says while the movement scan is activated, muscle analysis for training the movement has also been completed and asks him if he will accept the transfer to his muscles. He says he needs to have a muscle transfer too. Nano Machine says if he doesn't get the transfer for the muscles. He bends on the floor and says his whole body is in so much pain suddenly. He asks Nano Machine why his body is like this. Nano Machine responds that through repetitive training, his body forms muscles that are right for this movement, but his body has not properly developed these muscles, so there will be damage to his muscles. He wonders he knows that it did some sort of transfer, but it could explain it to him a little simpler. Nano Machine suggests translating the language to match the user's level. He inquires about his language proficiency level. Nano Machine informs him of the completion of the translation and explains that even though the user's brain may have learned it, his body won't be able to adjust to it since the master hasn't trained like Guard Jang for a long time. Nano Machine states that he must simulate his muscles so that he becomes fully familiar with the movement, and only after this simulation can he fully utilize these movements. Meanwhile, he finds it somewhat easier than before, but still difficult to grasp. Nano Machine inquires if he would like to adjust the language level to the lowest setting. He responds, asking if he won't experience pain after receiving this muscle transfer. Nano Machine asks if that's correct, and if he would like to initiate the transfer, explaining that this process requires the utilization of every nano machine in his body, which will take a couple of hours. He mentions that if it's only a couple of hours, there will still be time before he has to leave, so he can start it. Nano Machine informs him that the transfer will come with a lot of pain, so he will be put under anesthesia shortly. He asks Nano if it will hurt a lot. Nano Machine states that there are a total of 1,035,000 cases of fainting caused by this muscle transfer. Prince Chin-Yo-woon inquires if he can do it. Nano Machine asks if he would like to try it without anesthesia. He asks if he can't handle it and can switch to a state with anesthesia. Nano Machine confirms and begins the transfer. Prince Chin-Yo-woon mentions he was too nervous, it just tickles. Nano Machine injects anesthesia. He groans in pain and falls onto his bed. After a while, guard Jang cooks food, tastes it, and remarks that it's as good as most of the neighborhood masters. He asks if he should prepare something special today, but decides to just make a simple meal that Prince Chin-Yo-woon likes while he cuts vegetables. He reflects that it has already been 5 years since he learned to cook for him, and he wasn't even a good cook back then. He has a flashback and recalls Lady HWA saying to him, "Please take care of her, Chin-Yo-woon." Guard Jang reflects that it has already been 5 years since Lady HWA died from eating food containing poison. He realizes that the young Prince Chin-Yo-woon is now entering the academy today. Guard Jang prays, "Lady HWA, please protect him from heaven so that he can survive and have another meal." He hears his voice shouting, throws his knife, and rushes into the room, asking if Prince Chin-Yo-woon is alright. Prince Chin-Yo-woon falls onto his bed. Guard Jang calls out to him repeatedly, but he doesn't respond. Guard Jang checks his pulse and observes that he doesn't seem like anything is wrong, questioning if he is intentionally doing this. He notices some footsteps on the floor and inquires about whose footsteps they are. He reflects that while tracing these steps, Prince Chin-Yo-woon has been observing his training for at most 2 years. He believes that he has already caught up to his 20 years of training. Nano Machine announces that the required muscle and fiber transfer has been completed, so it is deactivating the anesthesia. Prince Chin-Yo-woon opens his eyes, gets up, and declares that he will never do that again. Nano Machine acknowledges that it certainly warned him, then asks why he was lying down and whether Guard Jang came by screaming. Prince Chin-Yo-woon retrieves his dagger from the ground and thinks that now it won't hurt to use the dagger technique. Nano Machine explains that through the muscle transfer, he now has the same muscles as those who have practiced these movements for 20 years, and he begins practicing again, stating that it feels good. He thinks these are the same techniques as before, but they are much more accurate and powerful, and the feeling of cutting through the air is so nice. He practices so hard and rotates his dagger, thinking that's all for the first formation. Now for the first step of the second formation. He sees his floor break and says this is bad. He thinks even though he didn't use Nigong, it still leaves footprints and asks if he has already completed Weigong. He says if Guard Jang sees this, it's going to be bad. Guard Jang calls him and says his breakfast is ready. He gets scared and quickly gets up, asking what he should do now, and says it won't go away even if he presses on it while he looks at the floor and tries to fix it. Meanwhile, Guard Jang reaches there and opens the door, calling him again. Prince Chin-Yo-woon quickly places the table at the footsteps and says he feels so hungry today, asking if he always eats by the window. He explains that since he won't be coming home for a while, he wanted to eat towards the center, and he thinks Guard Jang wouldn't have noticed while smiling secretly. He considers stir-fried bok choy and roast pork, rice with a fried egg on top, and realizes they're all his favorite foods. He notices the care Guard Jang has for him since today is the day he gets admitted to the academy and thinks this could be the last breakfast Guard Jang makes for him. Nano Machine explains that a sudden change in emotions is contributing to the acid coming up his esophagus and increasing the secretion of saliva, advising him to swallow the food with saliva to settle the acid. He thinks to stop saying weird things and to be quiet while Nano Machine is temporarily set to mute mode. He thinks he is going to eat everything and leave nothing left. Guard Jang requests to eat slowly. He is going to get indigestion. Prince Chin-Yo-woon agrees as he places his chopsticks back on the table and says that was a good meal. Guard Jang asks when he stays and refuses and tells him to learn his dagger technique. He asks what Guard Jang is talking about while Guard Jang removes the table. He looks at the footsteps and thinks this is a step made from moving into the second formation of his technique. It's a lot clearer than what he saw earlier and says, as expected, his eyes weren't wrong. Prince Chin-Yo-woon thinks that stealing other people's martial arts techniques is taboo in Morim, and he has committed a crime by stealing a technique through Nano's power. Even if Guard Jang will hate him, he has no excuse. Guard Jang says he did well and asks, so what if he learn in secret? He says he's his guard, and if it wasn't for the oath of the 6 clans, he would have taught it to him earlier, and he gives him an envelope. He asks what this is, while Guard Jang replies it's an energy flow method for the Nigong of the Dragger technique. He inquires why Guard Jang is giving this to him, and Guard Jang says he wants to give tips on learning the Nigong, but there will be many things at the academy that are much better than what he can give him, and tells him to learn those. Guard Jang goes into a flashback, resolving that he will never cry again as he sits near the dead body of his mother. Guard Jang thinks it has been 5 years since Lady Hwa passed away, and during that time, he gritted his teeth and put up with Prince Chin. But he's still a boy hungry for his parents' affection. Guard Jang says he can't be with him after he gets admitted, so he can cry today, but he must become stronger from now on. He becomes emotional and thanks Prince Chin, while Guard Jang goes out and closes the door. He thinks from now on, he mustn't fear or hesitate. Even though his mother is not here anymore, he still has a place he can return to. The scene shifts to the academy where all disciples line up, and one student asks, as he has heard, if all of the clans have gathered and asks how many people are here. Another student responds that he thinks there may be around 1,000. A third disciple says that now that he's here at the academy, he's getting nervous, while another student replies that since this is a competition between the heirs as a part of small clans, they need to get in line. Left Guardian Fire King Lee Hwa Mayang arrives there and says they're all so loud, it's such a mess that he can't see any kind of spirit from them, just stupid things. He wonders if they came here without the resolve that this place could be their last. A student comments that red hair is the left guardian, and another student inquires if isn't one of the top 10 strongest in the demonic cult. He asks wasn't it top 5? While Lee Hwa Mayang thinks the kids in the front row are the heirs of the 6 clans. He looks at Sound Clan number 6, Chinwon Raya, and thinks she's the only female candidate this time, and thinks about number 7, Chin-Yo-woon, wondering where he is. Chin-Yo-woon asks if there is no name tag, while the other student confirms and says he can't see the 7th prince's name tag, adding that it seems like he'll just have to wait until they find one. Chin-Yo-woon thinks this must be one of the 6 clans' tricks and says he understands. He'll wait. He wonders if they don't want him in the same row as them. He thinks, well, nothing good will come out of having conflict with them from the beginning, and recalls they were the ones who tried to kill him whenever they had the chance. He believes they would probably kill him right away if they saw him, but he still came here after countless attacks from them. He resolves to be stronger than anyone else in this demonic academy. Meanwhile, he observes the multitude of disciples and contemplates the difficulty of reaching the front in such a crowd. Some students engage in gossip, with one remarking about a black number 7 name tag, identifying the wearer as an heir candidate not affiliated with the 6 clans. Another student mentions rumors suggesting that the individual in question has not mastered any martial arts style. Someone responds, suggesting that such a person would likely be the first to fail. Prince Chin-Yo-woon assumes it's evident what they're whispering about, even if he cannot hear them clearly. He decides to ignore their potential mockery. Lee Hwa Mayang notices him and finds it absurd to see him standing alone all the way at the back. He finds it amusing that attention is drawn to him solely because he is the Lord's illegitimate child. After a while, the horns blow loudly, and a student announces that it's the sound of the horns signaling the imminent arrival of the Lord. They urge everyone to be quiet as the Lord approaches. All the students direct their attention to Right Guardian Crazy Blade Siob Meng, who stands alongside Lee Hwa Mayang. Siob Meng slips and becomes irritated, commenting on the oddity of his shabby clothes. Lee Hwa Mayang retorts, asking what Siob Meng is staring at, calling him a red-haired fool. Lead Guardian Great Guardian King Mercenary intervenes, instructing them to be quiet. The students then turn their gaze towards one of the top 5 strongest in the Morim Chinmay cult, Lord Chin Yo-jong, acknowledging his overwhelming presence with admiration, as expected of the Lord. Chen Yu-woon looks at the Lord and realizes that the person before him is his father. Merikium orders everyone to be silenced, and he bows in front of Lord Chen Yo-jong, informing him that everything is prepared. Lord Chen Yo-jong responds, stating that they all bear responsibility for the future of the cult, and he welcomes them. Chen Yu-woon ponders if this is what they refer to as Nigong, as it sounds like ordinary speech but resonates deeply in his ears. Lord Chen Yo-jong declares that this place is for training and forming bonds to strengthen the power of the cult, prompting excitement among the students who enthusiastically chant slogans for the demonic cult. All of Lord Chen Yo-woon's representatives bow and express agreement, to which he responds with praise, acknowledging their efforts. Chen Yo-woon gazes at him and reflects on their first meeting, recalling only the coldness in his eyes and acknowledging that he hadn't expected much then. Meanwhile, he reflects on being the person who didn't even show up after his mother died. Lee Hwa Myung remarks that now that the Lord's congratulatory speech is over, they should begin properly, but the students resume chit-chatting. He raises his voice, asking if they are not going to stand up straight. He announces that he's going to keep it simple, instructing them to listen carefully. The academy will last for 4 years and will consist of 6 stages. He explains that after each stage, they will take a test, with only one chance given to pass. The students become worried and inquire if they will fail if they can't pass the test on the first attempt. Lee Hwa Myung confirms that it seems they understood, stating that indeed, those who do not pass will be expelled instantly. Sword Clan's number 2, Chen Kyung-woon, raises his hand to ask a question. Lee Hwa Myung interjects, questioning who allowed someone like him to ask a question. He persists, asking what his question is. Lee Hwa Myung wonders if he has an issue with being called a rascal, reminding him that upon entering the academy, he forfeited all privileges associated with the 6 clans. He contemplates if Chen Kyung-woon desires expulsion even before the competition commences. Chen Mu-yeon and Spring Clan's number 3, Chen Mu-kyun, share a secret laugh. Chen Kyung-woon bows and apologizes, to which Lee Hwa Myung responds by stating that it's obvious that his question pertains to whether he considers the one-chance policy for the 6th stages unfair. Lee Hwa Myung reassures him that special benefits will be provided to those who pass the next stage. He further explains that the first benefit is the Black Dragon Ball. Chen Yo-woon wonders what the Black Dragon Ball is, prompting a student to clarify that they are discussing the Black Dragon Ball. Another student adds that it must be the medicine ball that enables the consumer to gain 20 years worth of Nigong. One student deduces that if one passes through all the stages and acquires 6 of the balls, they would gain 120 years worth of Nigong, akin to the level of a high expert. The other student questions why they would give such a valuable item if the masters would have likely taken them all already. Chen Yo-woon considers that he currently lacks any Nigong, but if he were to pass, he could instantly increase his Nigong. Lee Hwa Myung explains that the second benefit is the Martial Arts Book of Secrets, emphasizing the importance of these books to those who have trained in martial arts. He elaborates that the library of the Demonic Academy comprises 5 floors, with access to each floor granted upon passing a test. He mentions that depending on the effort they exert, they may have the opportunity to learn the secrets of various martial arts manuals. One student asks if this means he could learn divine phonology, while another compares it to the knowledge possessed by the Muram masters. Chen Yo-woon realizes that he needs the martial arts books to survive, considering them more crucial than Nigong. Lee Hwa Myung expresses doubt, stating that most of them won't reach the 5th floor, even if they weren't resurrected, so they shouldn't get their hopes up. Seob Meng reflects on his ability to boost morale and then quickly diminish it, feeling dissatisfied with everything he does. Lee Hwa Myung announces that the third and final benefit is that they will obtain a rank they have never held before. Chen Kyung-woon observes him and realizes that this is why even the candidates do not have any ranks or privileges here. Everything changes once they enter the academy. From now on, only the strong will survive. Lee Hwa Myung explains that each time they pass through a stage, they will receive a rank. A low-ranked warrior for stage 1, a middle-ranked warrior for stage 2, a high-ranked warrior for stage 3, a squad leader for stage 4, and clan leader for stage 5. As for the 6th stage, it doesn't matter to any of them, so he will just skip it. Meanwhile, he elaborates that most of those present won't be able to progress beyond 3 stages regardless of their efforts. He questions whether it would not be a disgrace for members of high-ranked clans to become low-ranked warriors. Xiaobmeng wonders if Stage 6 can even be called a test, considering its difficulty. He notes that it's almost impossible, as fewer than 10 people have passed the test in the Academy's hundreds of years of existence. Li Hwa Mayang explains that at the Academy, if they manage to advance through the upper levels, their ranks will be recognized. While they all may begin with the same cadet ranks, their ranks will differ later on. Qin Yo-woon reflects that if surviving until now was his biggest problem, now survival means advancing in ranks. Li Hwa Mayang declares that he has finished explaining and announces that from now on, he will assign dormitory groups as they begin the first test. Qin Yo-woon becomes worried and asks what he means by this. The students start chit-chatting, with one questioning if they heard correctly and another expressing disbelief and questioning the fairness of the situation. Another student asks if they are supposed to learn something first, while his friend wonders if they can have the first test already, to which he responds by asking what they will do if they get expelled. Li Hwa Mayang instructs them all to be quiet and reiterates that, as he stated before, those who fail this test will be expelled from the academy and won't even deserve to be called low-ranked warriors. He explains that the first test will assess their basic skills, emphasizing the need for at least basic Nigong to become a warrior of their school. Those without basic Nigong will be assigned to agricultural, commercial, and service districts, so they should be prepared for the possibility of failure. Qin Yo-woon inquires about darning work, and he chuckles, responding that no, they do need people for menial tasks, so they shouldn't try too hard. Qin Yo-woon curses inwardly, realizing that this is the reason why the ladies of the 6 clans made him swear an oath not to learn Nigong, and if he fails this test, he will become part of the lowest clan of the cult. He acknowledges that if that happens, anyone could try to kill him. Chen Mu-kiam observes him and thinks that he doesn't know whose idea it is, but it's quite clever. This will spare him the trouble of having to kill himself. After a while, Hang So-yu, the 5th elder and clan leader of the Sound clan within the demonic cult, arrives and begins to play music. Li Hwa Mayang explains that she will oversee the first test, as she holds both positions. He emphasizes that this test is honestly very easy. If they fail here, they'll never even reach the rank of a low-ranked warrior. A student asks who the leader of the Sound clan is, while another questions what kind of test warrants the presence of the Sound clan's leader. They receive no answer, while Qin Yo-woon wonders why everyone is covering their ears. Li Hwa Mayang explains that if the 5th elder were to actually unleash her musical energy wave, the weaker ones wouldn't stand a chance. However, she will control it for everyone's sake, so they shouldn't worry too much. With luck, they may even endure it without needing to rely on Nigong. Qin Yo Mayang curses inwardly, realizing they are to endure the musical energy wave. Hang So-yu explains that even with just a little Nigong, they will be able to hold on for a minute. Li Hwa Mayang explains that those who endure the energy wave for a minute without fainting will pass the first test. He initiates the test by performing a magic spell on all the students, causing them to become scared. One student shouts that he can still hear it even while covering his ears, and they all collapse. Qin Mu-kiam observes that as expected, most of the candidates from the smaller clans have already fallen, while those from the 6 clans and other high-ranked clans are holding out. He laughs and remarks that the music is just irritating his ears as she begins to play again. She contemplates how candidates from the 6 clans have been taking medicines since childhood, enabling them to accumulate significant amounts of Nigong. She assumes that the individual with no Nigong is probably already on the ground. He observes that something seems unusual. Despite the clan leaders playing becoming faster, Qin Yo-woon has not yet fallen. Meanwhile, she watches as the top 5 candidates cover their ears and attempt to endure the sound, while Qin Yo-woon calmly stands without covering his ears, observing them all. He looks at his hands, wondering what is happening, as half of the people in the field are already on the ground. He wonders if they are all suffering from internal injuries and questions why he is unaffected. Nano machine detects powerful high and low frequency waves from the instruments and identifies a possibility of serious damage to his body. It activates emergency defense mode to block the sound waves. He reflects that Nano has enabled him to not hear the sound waves. Nano machine confirms that his body's ability to sense sound has been temporarily halted. He wonders how he can still hear voices, and Nano machine explains that the information is being directly sent to his brain. He finds this process difficult and asks if he can block the intimidating gaze. Nano Machine inquires if he wishes to obstruct his vision. He declines, deciding to let it be. Lee Hwa Myung senses impatience in the Fifth Elder's performance and believes that the history of the Sound Clan has grown significantly stronger over time. He believes this might be overwhelming for those with less than 20 years of Nigong. He concludes that he must be the reason for his unaffected state, even though he had heard that he possessed no Nigong, which must be incorrect. Meanwhile, he reflects on how he is enduring this situation in such a stable condition. He considers that this is the first time he has seen such an exciting first test since he assumed his role at the academy. Now he wonders how long that individual without Nigong will last. A student informs his friend that his ears are bleeding, and the friend acknowledges that the same is happening to him. He finds it challenging to hold out even with 20 years of Nigong and realizes that he needs to persevere. The pride of the upper clan is at stake. However, he questions why the Fifth Elder is playing so intensely. Chin-Moo Kiam sits and meditates, observing that her facial expression is distorted, leading him to assume that she is angry. He wonders if there could be a reason for her intense playing. Chin Jong-sum also notices him and wonders why he suddenly appears surprised. Chin Won-rya thinks to himself that they aren't supposed to look behind them, but wonders if there is something there nonetheless. They all look at Chin Yo-woon surprisingly, wondering how that individual with no Nigong can be completely fine, as he doesn't seem to be tired at all. Chin-Moo Kiam speculates that the individual must have had Nigong after all. Chin Yo-woon thinks to himself, questioning Nano if it's as he suspects, noting the anger displayed by the children in the front and the Fifth Elder. Nano Machine responds that it analyzes facial musical movements and detects emotions such as absurdity, surprise, petulance and anger from their facial muscles. Despite being unable to hear anything, Chin Yo-woon observes their hostility and deduces that their pride is wounded after initially believing he had no Nigong, only to see him endure for so long. He realizes that if he passes the first test in such good condition, they won't believe him if he claims he doesn't have Nigong. Considering whether he could give himself an internal injury, Nano Machine inquires if he means injuring his organs. He agrees, and Nano Machine confirms that it is possible, but it doesn't recommend intentionally injuring his body. Meanwhile, he thinks he doesn't care. Once the performance is over, he wants to give him an internal injury and make him vomit blood. Nano Machine acknowledges the order to force internal organ damage. Hang Soo-yu reflects that it's almost 1 minute now and is surprised that the individual who isn't even 15 years old could endure this so easily. She realizes she can't end it like this because her pride won't allow it, feeling angry. She decides she needs to try and endure this performance that uses half the power in her body, and she plays music with all her powers. Lee Hwa Myung perceives this as dangerous. Chin Jong-sum starts bleeding and coughing. Lee Hwa Myung urges her to stop, as any more will be dangerous. He observes that almost all the students have fallen, while Chin Yo-woon stands calmly. The top 5 candidates also fall to a very low position and cough, while she stops playing music, and they express relief that it's finally over. Xiaob Meng reflects that if she had used even a little more power, everyone would have failed the first test, and he can't believe the Fifth Elder let it get out of control. She sits down and curses inwardly, realizing what she just did. She couldn't control her anger against that young individual and unleashed half her power. She attributes this to the violation of the 6 clans. She directs her gaze at Chin Yo-woon. Chin Yo-woon vomits blood, prompting Chin-Moo Kiam to observe him and wonder what's happening. He questions what that is and how could he throw up that much blood. Is he dying? Chin Yo-woon puts his hand to his mouth and calls for Nano Machine. Nano Machine reports that the program has been executed as ordered, causing damage to about 30% of the organs in the body, resulting in significant blood loss. He reflects that he thought he was dying while he vomited so much blood. Lee Hwa Myung rushes towards him, realizing that if he dies because of the test, he will be held responsible for everything. Despite not being from the 6 clans, they can't let a member of the leader's line die. He reaches him, holds his hand, and asks if he's okay. Nano Machine detects dizziness caused by 7% blood loss and activates self-healing mechanisms designed for organ damage and blood loss. He refuses and says he's not okay yet. Lee Hwa Myung holds on to him, expressing frustration that he could have just given up. Nano Machine warns that he's in a dangerous condition. He decides to wait a little longer while Lee Hwa Myung supports him, marveling at the amount of Nigong he must possess to endure so much. He checks his pulse and realizes that he doesn't have any pulse. He considers this situation to be quite remarkable. Given the negative rumors surrounding the seventh prince, he didn't have high expectations. He finds it hard to believe that he passed the first test solely through pure mental strength and sheer willpower. He summons 2 guards and instructs them to take him to the infirmary. Chin Yo-woon urges Nano Machine to heal him quickly. Hang So-yu observes him and marvels at the fact that he endured her energy wave effortlessly, despite having severe internal injuries. Lee Hwa Myung reproaches her, stating that her actions were excessive and almost resulted in his death. She questions incredulously how he could have endured her energy wave without any Nigong. She argues that if he had no Nigong, he would have fainted like the other children. He states that he has very serious injuries and endured it all with just his will, while she questions what he means by enduring it with his will. He explains that it's sheer willpower, which is enough to be intimidating. He reflects that if he weren't an illegitimate child, he would have liked to raise him as a student, but going against the 6 clans would lead to nothing good. Seob Meng drinks water and laughs, remarking that enduring with willpower is fun. Lee Hwa Myung tells him it's none of his business and advises him to go to a corner and drink all he wants. Seob Meng retorts that he was going to do so even if he hadn't been told. Lee Hwa Myung tells him to get lost and insults him, mentioning that a guy who would be dead if he wasn't a guardian seems to be good at messing around. Seob Meng remarks that he seems to speak well even with a mouth full of alcohol and recalls that day when he said that if he weren't a guardian, he would have been dead. Seob Meng becomes angry and casts a magic spell on him, causing the spell waves to go toward the students, while they perceive this intense energy and think that the right and left guardians are crazy. Seob Meng walks away and declares that he's leaving, insulting him and remarking on the students sprawled on the ground from just that kind of energy wave, noting the lack of grit in kids these days. He looks at the top 5 candidates and thinks that compared to them, he really likes that kid, Chin Yo-woon. The scene shifts to the 2nd floor infirmary of the Demonic Academy's main building, where Demonic Academy Dr. Baek Jong Myung is seen writing something. Suddenly, someone knocks on his door and informs him that there is a patient. He eagerly asks whose patient it is, then opens the door and excitedly inquires about the patient's whereabouts, while guards hold Chin Yo-woon. He expresses surprise, wondering how this could have happened, as having a patient on the first day is unexpected but characteristic of the Demonic Academy. A guard looks at him and recalls hearing that he was Baek Jong-woo's student, noting his enthusiasm for medical practice. Baek Jong Myung dances excitedly as he walks toward Chin Yo-woon and tells him that this isn't the time to be joyful, instructing him to come inside. The guards help Chin Yo-woon lie down on the bed, while Baek Jong Myung examines him and asks how difficult a test could be for someone to be in such a condition. Meanwhile, he inquires if was he stabbed in the stomach. The guard denies this, stating that he's wounded internally. Dr. Baek Jong Myung is shocked and asks if this is from internal damage, to which the guard responds affirmatively, mentioning that he doesn't have any Nigong, so the left guardian has requested special care for him. He reflects that he has seen many cases in the 10 years he has been his teacher's student, but this is the first time he has seen so much blood from an internal injury. The guard then mentions that since they have brought him to the infirmary, they will be on their way. He acknowledges this and the guard questions why he is moving so slowly when they're busy. The other guard dismisses it as nothing and reflects on the kid, noting that his complexion seems much better than before and wonders if he's mistaken. Dr. Baek Jong Myung checks his pulse while trying to open his eyes and thinks he completely forgot about the infirmary. He realizes he's almost healed all the internal damage, but it still hurts a lot. He knows he has to endure it until the doctor is done. Dr. Baek Jong Myung remarks that the pulse is clearly irregular and fast, indicating significant damage. He finds it very strange because even if he bites his tongue, he doesn't bleed this much. He decides to start off with some acupuncture. Suddenly, an explosion occurs, causing him to fall down. Startled, he looks at Seob Meng. Seob Meng takes a sip of water and asks why he is here, sarcastically remarking about the former cowardly student now becoming the academy's doctor. Dr. Baek Jong Myung thinks Seob Meng has that annoying tone as always and asks what brings him to the infirmary, noting that as the right guardian, he shouldn't be injured anywhere. Siab Meng laughs in a demonic manner and remarks that it seems he doesn't appreciate his presence. He chuckles and adds, "Of course not. Please make himself comfortable here." He contemplates that he can never fully understand him while casting a glance at Chin Yo-woon. Siab Meng then asks, "Look at this, isn't he such an interesting kid?" Chin Yo-woon wonders why that individual is in the infirmary and ponders if he has discerned that he's feigning internal injuries. He curses inwardly, finding the smell of alcohol unbearable. Meanwhile, Siab Meng questions why he's pretending to be asleep, seizes him, and begins chanting a spell, causing Chin Yo-woon to break into a sweat. Dr. Baek Jong-myung observes that he lifted a person without physical contact, affirming that he's the rightful guardian of the school. He considers whether he utilized Nigong to sit him up. Chin Yo-woon realizes he cannot move his body since it hasn't been properly set yet, while Siab Meng warns that if he continues feigning sleep, he'll strike him across the face. Yielding to the pressure, Chin Yo-woon opens his eyes, exclaiming he has been caught. He inquires how he discerned his ruse. Amused, Siab Meng comments on Chin Yo-woon's audacity and asks how he dares to be so brazen, let alone embarrassed in the presence of a guardian. Siab Meng explains that any seasoned warrior can distinguish between wakefulness and sleep by the rhythm of one's breath. Reflecting, he realizes he discerned it from the sound of his breathing. The Nano machine interjects, stating that the typical breathing rate for a male aged 15 to 20 is approximately 12 to 20 breaths per minute. However, earlier, Chin Yo-woon's breathing was only around 8 breaths per minute, indicating an unnatural state. He contemplates that he doesn't require any superfluous information. Siab Meng laughs and remarks that he doubts youngsters nowadays possess the audacity he does. He's rather impressive. Glancing at him, he wonders if the reason he came here is because he noticed his pretense. Siab Meng comments that contemporary youth lack endurance, always seeking the easy way out when faced with even slight difficulties. However, he reflects that he didn't persevere solely through willpower. Meanwhile, Dr. Baek Jong-myung intervenes, advising Siab Meng that the patient is in poor condition and suggests prioritizing treatment. He retorts that an adult is speaking at the moment, even as Chin Yo-woon vomits blood. He observes that Chin Yo-woon's complexion appears unhealthy and surmises that he inadvertently released his Nigong while casting a spell on him. Meanwhile, he announces that he will be direct and expresses his desire to mentor him, then resumes drinking. Chin Yo-woon reclines and inquires about his intentions, to which he responds by clarifying that he is proposing to take him on as a student. Siab Meng questions if Chin Yo-woon is unaware of his identity, asking if there is anyone unfamiliar with him. Chin Yo-woon raises concerns about potential opposition from the 6 clans regarding Siab Meng taking him as a student. He laughs off the idea, stating that it's amusing and asserting that regardless, competition between the clans will persist with or without Chin Yo-woon. He considers it a remarkable opportunity, but contemplates whether it could be a trap. Meanwhile, Dr. Baek Jong-myung identifies the individual as the notorious 7th Prince, acknowledging suspicions of trickery at the demonic academy, but deeming the extent of his blood loss excessive. He expresses his surprise at the suddenness of the offer and notes that he will also have a teacher in the academy. Siab Meng remarks that if he reacts like that, it will appear as though he's pleading for him to become his student. He reflects that this kid harbors many doubts, which is understandable given his past experiences. He continues, stating that if Chin Yo-woon remains unconvinced, he will present him with an offer he cannot refuse while placing a paper near his head. Curious, Chin Yo-woon asks about the paper's contents. Siab Meng explains that it contains what Chin Yo-woon needs the most to survive in the demonic academy, considering he's confined to the infirmary shortly after arriving. He questions whether Chin Yo-woon is not concerned about falling behind, despite passing the first test solely through willpower. He further queries if Chin Yo-woon believes someone without Nigong like himself can pass the second test. Siab Meng asserts that anyone aspiring to become a warrior must anticipate ahead of others. He questions whether Chin Yo-woon intends to remain in the infirmary for 2 weeks, falling behind from the outset. While acknowledging his own confinement, he acknowledges that others will undoubtedly progress significantly during this time. He takes a sip of his drink, contemplating that he cannot refute this fact. Despite this, he acknowledges the need to stay here temporarily to avoid suspicion. Siab Meng then inquires if Chin Yo-woon knows why the red-headed individual sent him to the infirmary. Chin Yo-woon responds, suggesting it's because he had internal injuries. He confirms this, stating that if one is injured, they should be sent to the infirmary. However, he finds it peculiar and questions why the red-headed individual didn't send other internally injured children there as well. Xiaobmeng explains that most individuals in Miram can heal internal damage through meditation, though it would be quicker with the aid of a doctor or medicine. Qinyo Wun questions if this implies they don't need it. He confirms, stating that the other children were able to heal themselves at least partially, thus there was no need to send them to the infirmary. He reflects that this is why Qinyo Wun is alone in the infirmary, he wasn't able to heal himself. Reflecting on Qinyo Wun's situation, Xiaobmeng contemplates that they are almost at the crux of the matter. He considers whether to conclude the conversation, stating that someone incapable of meditating to heal, like Qinyo Wun, cannot cure internal damage quickly. He acknowledges that it's feasible, but as he previously mentioned, if Qinyo Wun desires to progress to the next stage, he will need Nigong. Meanwhile, Qinyo Wun mentions that he had heard that passing the first test would grant him access to the medicine ball and the first floor of the academy's library. Xiaobmeng interjects, remarking that it seems the redhead neglected to mention something crucial. He demands to know what this overlooked detail is. Xiaobmeng explains that the academy's library isn't freely accessible. One can only enter it once they have passed a test. He questions if Qinyo Wun assumed he would be free to peruse all the significant books at will, emphasizing the strict security measures in place. He adds that there is also a 2-hour time limit for staying on the first floor. Qinyo Wun expresses surprise at the limitation, likening it to encountering one mountain after another. Xiaobmeng elaborates that more time is granted as one ascends to higher floors. Additionally, he informs Qinyo Wun that writing down any content is prohibited. Everything must be memorized before leaving. He remarks that memorizing 2 books alone is considered a significant task. Meanwhile, Qinyo Wun considers that this doesn't provide him with a substantial advantage, especially with Nano Machine's scanning abilities. He reflects that within 2 hours, he could potentially scan not just 1 or 2, but hundreds of books. Xiaobmeng comments on the challenges awaiting Qinyo Wun, stating that for him, a boy without Nigong, 4 years at the demanding demonic academy will truly test his limits. Pondering this, Qinyo Wun wonders if Xiaobmeng is suggesting that he is different from the other students. He reflects that most others who enter the academy are trained in their clan's martial arts, whereas he lacks both martial arts skills and Nigong. Considering the looming threat from the 6 clans, he contemplates whether he truly needs to become Xiaobmeng's student. He mentions the paper lying beside Qinyo Wun's head and, upon glancing at it, inquires if it's about the breath of Nigong. Xiaobmeng chuckles and acknowledges Qinyo Wun's insight, confirming that indeed, it pertains to the breath of Nigong. He promises that if Qinyo Wun becomes his student, he'll immediately begin teaching him the technique. Qinyo Wun muses on whether this person genuinely desires him as a student, but recognizes the need to have at least one ally on his side. He sees this as an opportunity to learn the breath of Nigong, something he couldn't attain due to the oath with the 6 clans. Qinyo Wun rises and bows before Xiaobmeng, accepting him as his teacher and requesting to be taken as his student. He explains the tradition of a student bowing to their teacher twice. He, however, insists that Qinyo Wun need not bow, as someone with the Qin bloodline should only bow to the Lord himself. Xiaobmeng advises Qinyo Wun to rest for the day and emphasizes the importance of memorizing and learning the principles of the breath of Nigong before his return. He informs Dr. Beek Zhongmayang that he will be leaving, entrusting the care of his student to him while giving him a tap on the shoulder. Dr. Beek Zhongmayang observes him with a grin and inquires if Qinyo Wun is feeling alright. He remarks that he must have taken a liking to him, expressing his congratulations on becoming his student. Meanwhile, Dr. Beek Zhongmayang notes that Qinyo Wun appeared pale and struggled due to his internal injuries. Xiaobmeng informs Qinyo Wun that he will return with acupuncture tools and requests for patience. Qinyo Wun agrees, reflecting on the numerous opportunities he has been given, including Nano Machine and Xiaobmeng's support, akin to his mother and guard Zhang's assistance amidst adversaries at the academy. He realizes he finally has someone on his side. The scene shifts to the Demonic Academy practice field, where all students stand, focusing on healing themselves. Demonic Academy senior martial artist Ho Jin Chang arrives and kneels down, addressing Li Hwa Mayong. He announces that he will report the results of the first test, including the cadet who was taken to the infirmary. The total number of people who passed the test is 415. Lee Hwa Myung notes that this is 200 less than the first test from 10 years ago, remarking that Elder Hang's energy waves were indeed overwhelming. He adds that those who failed likely find the outcome unfair. Chen Mu-kyun interjects, expressing frustration that he didn't lose consciousness, and questions why he is being expelled merely for having bubbles come out of his mouth, deeming it unfair. One cadet asks if he doesn't comprehend the situation, while another questions if he believes they can spend their entire lives in service or farming. He wonders how he is expected to live such a life. Another cadet remarks that it appears he is unable to accept the outcome, with another agreeing. He then concludes that there is no other option but to rebel against the demonic academy. Using his skill, he forcefully removes him from the scene. Ho Jin Chang observes the situation and comments that the students in the forefront possess great skills, and those expelled won't stand a chance against them. He observes that due to their stubbornness, they won't learn anything from this experience. He sympathizes, stating that if he were in their position, he would consider it unfair as well. Ho Jin Chang adds that it was because of the actions of Cadet 7 that the intensity of the first test was heightened, emphasizing that it is not just a matter of luck or skill, but also fate. Ho Jin Chang remarks that among those who passed the first test, there are a good number of exceptional individuals. Lee Hwa Myung responds by asking if Ho Jin Chang also shares this opinion, pointing out that most of them are currently meditating due to internal damage. Additionally, he notes that 8 candidates from the upper clans of the 6 clans seem to have effortlessly succeeded. Lee Hwa Myung adds that these candidates were already operating at a different level compared to the other cadets. He muses that in order to withstand Elder Hang's energy waves without sustaining damage, one would require at least hundreds of years to accumulate enough Nigong. Reflecting on the situation, Lee Hwa Myung observes 2 notable candidates, Chin Mu-yeon from the Dark Clan and Chen Yu-chan from the Blade Clan, standing there without flinching. He considers rumors suggesting that the impending battle will be contested between the Dark Clan and the Blade Clan, as anticipated. Lee Hwa Myung finds this prospect intriguing and laughs. Guardian Lee Hwa Myung states that he congratulates them on passing the first test and informs them that they will be given a bronze medal to represent the lower ranks of this academy. For the next 4 years, they will be trained as cadets of the Demonic Academy. He explains that at the Demonic Academy, students are not permitted to answer with yes or no. Instead, motto is the only acceptable response. Anything else is akin to asking to repeat an order. He inquires if they understand, to which they all respond with motto. He then suggests organizing into groups. After a while, Baek Jong Myung arrives holding a plate for treatment and states that he is now prepared. He asks if they should get started with the treatment. Prince Chin Yo-woon addresses him as a doctor. Baek Jong Myung corrects him, stating that it's Baek Jong Myun, and suggests he include his last name rather than just calling him a doctor. Prince Chin Yo-woon inquires about his condition, wondering if it's severe. Baek Jong Myung apologizes and explains that, unfortunately, as a cadet of the Demonic Academy, it will take at least 11 to 15 days for him to be able to participate in the tests. Prince Chin Yo-woon asks for clarification, pondering what he should do. If Nano were to start the self-recovery mode, the treatment would be over instantly. However, if he heals too quickly, it will raise suspicion. On the other hand, if he undergoes normal treatment, he will fall behind in training. He thinks he doesn't know anything following the first test since he was taken to the infirmary. Baek Jong Myung reassures him not to be too disappointed, stating that if he were to be treated by an ordinary doctor, it would take months, but it would be much shorter because he is Baek Jong-woo's student. However, he emphasizes that it will still take a lot of time alongside training. Baek Jong-woo mentions that this might not be of much help, but he will pretend that he doesn't know he is learning martial arts from the right guardian. He thanks him, promising to repay him in the future. Baek Jong-woo responds that it's fine, as he doesn't expect much anyway. He quickly removes his shirt, noting that now, since they will be doing acupuncture, he is going to have to take off his clothes. He looks at his body in shock, thinking he knows he hasn't learned any martial arts, yet his body looks much better than he had imagined. He considers that perhaps he didn't achieve this through Nigong, and if he did, it must have been through Weingong. Taking a needle, he declares the first one will go in the middle of his chest. The nano machine alerts, sensing an attempt to harm the user's body with a sharp iron needle, and activates self-defense mode. Prince Chinyo orders, "No, stop that. The doctor is doing this for treatment." He He wonders if he can't differentiate between an attack and treatment. The Nano machine responds, deactivating self-defense mode as commanded by the user, and warns that if he doesn't inform it in advance about something being treated, it will consider any damage to his body as an attack. He thinks all right henceforth, he does not react to things that he accepts willingly. The Nano machine confirms that he understands. He observes his stomach and notices that it is starting to hurt less. The Nano machine confirms that it is retrieving the information contained in the system's built-in acupuncture diagram, and the spots where the acupuncture needles are placed are down the chest, under his heart, and on his arm. 6 of these exact spots enhance regeneration in the stomach area. He realizes that he is able to understand more easily with the transferred information. He gazes at Baek Jong-woo. Baek Jong-woo mentions that he is feeling embarrassed from the stare and suggests taking a nap while the acupuncture takes effect. He agrees and realizes he cannot sleep with Nano explaining everything. The Nano machine indicates areas under the knee, toes, and shins. He opens his eyes and considers whether Nano could treat his internal injuries. This treatment would expedite his recovery. However, if he heals too quickly, they will become suspicious. He wonders if Nano can heal him while still making it appear as if he is wounded. The Nano machine informs him that after completing his treatment with self-recovery, it's possible to simulate organ damage by randomly altering his pulse. He thinks he only asked just in case, but he's glad it's possible. If he can deceive Dr. Baek for about 2 weeks, this will be his chance to learn Nigong from the Right Guardian. He decides it's alright, then instructs Nano to heal him now and deceive Dr. Baek when he comes to check on him. The Nano machine confirms that it understands, initiating self-recovery mode as commanded by the user. After a while, Ho Jin Chang instructs the cadets to stand at attention and get in line. They comply with a responsive motto. Lee Hwa Myung announces that he is going to explain their next test. He states that until the 3rd test, all cadets will take the test simultaneously, and to pass the 2nd test and become mid-level warriors, they must be familiar with basic tactics and strategies. He emphasizes that they have only 20 days to prepare. They are all shocked to hear this and think that it's too short a time. One cadet wonders if they will be able to memorize all the tactics and strategies. Lee Hwa Myung then asks if they are curious as to why there are 20 groups, explaining that only 10 groups will progress to the next stage in 3 weeks' time. A cadet thinks to himself that Lee Hwa Myung is implying that half of the cadets will be expelled and that their group lacks any top cadets, speculating that the 6 clans will likely have an advantage. Lee Hwa Myung asserts that this is the first and last test requiring them to work together. He warns that if they choose to compete within their group, they will all fail together. Ho Jin Chang privately reflects that Lee Hwa Myung is still adept at demoralizing others. He announces that today's schedule has concluded, allowing them to return to their assigned dorms and rest. He adds that starting from tomorrow, they will be taught tactics and techniques by the staff in front of them, who will do so kindly. One cadet recalls the training and wonders if they were the ones who dealt with the rebellious cadets. Lee Hwa Myung then dismisses them. After some time, Group 8 instructor Im Pyong inquires why Cadet 3, Chen Mu Kiam, is still present. Chen Mu Kiam responds that he has a question to ask. Im Pyong reminds him that he cannot answer questions related to training. Chen Mu Kiam acknowledges this. Im Pyong then asks what his question is. Chen Mu Kiam asserts that he is pretty sure he will be the leader of Group 8. Im Pyong reflects that the selection for team leaders is supposed to occur tomorrow, but the 6 clans, as always, find the rules ridiculous. He explains that Cadet 7, assigned to their group, is in the infirmary, and with one person missing from a group test, he does not want the entire group to fail. He explains that because he did not attend the ceremony today, he won't know anything, so he wants to inform Cadet 7 about what they heard today. He reflects on his own lowly status, finding it remarkable that he's in the same group as Cadet 7 and believes his luck ends there. He decides he will go to the infirmary himself to tamper with Cadet 7's limbs. Im Pyong responds, saying it's a good idea and that it seems like he understands the basics, thus complimenting him on his first day. He acknowledges the compliment, stating that he will take his advice. As the instructor of their group, he resolves to go to the main building to deliver the information to Cadet 7. Cadet 7 is shocked and questions why, insisting he doesn't have to do that and mentioning that the main building is off limits to cadets except under special circumstances. He contemplates that he didn't expect to encounter difficulties in entering the main building and wonders why so many things are going wrong. He acknowledges that he is the candidate from the Spring Clan, but realizes he can't use that privilege here. There's no other way. He says he understands and then asks for a favor. Impyong moves to the lever and agrees, instructing him to go back to his dorm. He calls out to him. Impyong inquires if there is something else he wants to say. He asks if Impyong could at least let him know when Cadet 7 will start joining them. Impyong assures him that there's no problem with that, and since it's too late today, he will inform him tomorrow. He responds affirmatively, thanking Impyong and thinking that now that it has come to this, he will have to wait until he returns to their dorm and hopes Cadet 7 gets better soon. He contemplates making him feel enough pain for him to desire death. Meanwhile, at the Demonic Academy main building, Impyong asks if they mentioned 14 days. Baek Jong-myung confirms, stating that the internal damage is severe enough to necessitate a minimum 14-day stay. Impyong remarks that if he remains hospitalized for that duration, it will be challenging for him to reach the top level without any means to expedite his recovery. He explains that this is what he is asking, if only Cadet 7 had Nigong. However, since he does not possess it, there seems to be no alternative but to endure a lengthy recovery period. Impyong considers that the second test is only 3 weeks away. He can't believe he will have to be hospitalized for 2 weeks, and he doesn't want his group to be eliminated just because of this one guy. He requests permission to speak to Cadet 7, stating that he has a lot to tell him. Baek Jong-myung explains that Cadet 7 is currently sleeping, so it will be difficult to arrange a meeting and asks if he should wake him up. Impyong declines, deciding to come back tomorrow instead. He bids farewell and thinks to himself that he only barely managed to pass the first test, and this setback must be the end of his luck. After a while, the Right Guardian Xiao Meng secretly enters Chen Yo-woon's room. Chen Yo-woon wakes up due to the noise and is shocked to see him. Xiao Meng laughs and remarks that his teacher is here. Chen Yo-woon looks at him, noticing he's holding an alcohol bottle and detects the smell of alcohol. Xiao Meng asks if he's not going to greet him. Chen Yo-woon stands up, bows down and greets his teacher with a good morning. Xiao Meng responds with good and inquires if Chen Yo-woon has finished the homework he gave him yesterday. Chen Yo-woon asks if he's referring to the breath of Nigong. Xiao Meng confirms, stating that he instructed him to memorize it all before his return. Chen Yo-woon reflects that he was taken to the infirmary and treated just yesterday, realizing that Xiao Meng must be very short-tempered. He wonders if he possibly couldn't memorize everything. Chen Yo-woon reflects that he's glad he was treated by Nano beforehand and confidently asserts that of course he memorized it all. Xiao Meng is surprised, considering he memorized all of it while he was sick, realizing that Chen Yo-woon only said that to provoke him. He compliments Chen Yo-woon, acknowledging his diligence in completing the homework. Chen Yo-woon thanks him for the compliment and asks if he doesn't think he came too early. Xiao Meng asks why he is tired. Chen Yo-woon clarifies that's not the case. Xiao Meng then expresses his relief and proceeds to inform him of something important because he has to know, and he can only teach him for 2 weeks. He mentions that Chen Yo-woon can come to see him while he is in the infirmary, but once he goes back to his dorm, he won't be able to contact him. Chen Yo-woon admits he hadn't thought that far ahead. He mentions that he was hospitalized the moment he arrived and questions how Xiao Meng would have known. He explains that he has to work as a main teacher during the day, so he can only come this early to avoid raising suspicion. Chen Yo-woon reflects that in the Demonic Academy, it is prohibited to receive training from outsiders, and if caught, the problem would escalate. He initially thought Xiao Meng would be stubborn, but he's been paying a lot of attention. He expresses gratitude for Xiao Meng's consideration. Xiao Meng responds by stating that since they don't have much time, they should get started immediately. He asks if they can begin right now. Xiao Meng angrily asks if Chen Yo-woon doesn't hear him saying that they don't have a lot of time and instructs him to turn around and sit on the ground. Chen Yo-woon agrees, saying he understands. Xiao Meng urges him to hurry up. Chen Yo-woon wishes Xiao Meng would explain why he's doing this. He remarks that it's fortunate he memorized the breathing of 1,000 martial and places his hand on Chen Yo-woon's back. Chen Yo-woon asks what he's going to do. He explains that because they don't have much time, he will channel the flow into him. Chen Yo-woon questions what he means by stuffing it in. He elaborates that it's a sophisticated technique created by his great-grandfather where there's no need to feel the kai, and his teacher will handle everything. Chen Yo-woon inquires about the teacher. He clenches his jaw, warning that if he screams and the guards come, it will be the end. He performs some magic to channel the flow and instructs Chen Yo-woon to shut his mouth. The nano machine notifies that intangible energy has been inserted into the user's blood, initiating an analysis based on the built-in data, identifying the energy as assumed kai and chakra, and proceeding to analyze the effect on the user's body. Chen Yo-woon realizes that his teacher's strong nigong is forcibly opening his veins, but it's too much. He wonders if he truly hasn't learned anything, unable to believe that there are no blockages or obstacles in his circulation. His muscles also appear to have been trained, despite his knowledge that he hasn't been learning any martial arts. He ponders if it could be due to the Lord. Recalling some memories, he reflects that out of his 7 wives, he had only cared about Lady Hwa. Perhaps he had secretly cared for this child as well, and regardless, the outcome is favorable. He believes that with him in this condition, it should only take 7 days to generate a good amount of nigong. At the same time, in the demonic academy dorms, some cadets are engaged in a fight. A cadet advises Prince to get a hold of himself. Another cadet questions if he believes he will be safe after attacking Chin Jongsum of the Poison Clan. The top clan cadet, Baek-gi, asks if it matters who he is or who he is, stating that the demonic academy is based solely on strength. Now that he has won, he asserts that he will be in charge of Group 12. Meanwhile, Xiaobmeng performs some magic and asks if Chen Yo-woon has memorized the flow. Chen Yo-woon confirms that he remembers it clearly. Xiaobmeng remarks that it must have been quite painful during this initial trial, but it's the best method to teach those like Chen Yo-woon who have no nigong. He states that his goal is 7 days. He needs to acquire enough nigong during that time. He asks if Chen Yo-woon understands. Chen Yo-woon reflects that seeing how tired Xiaobmeng is, he must have used a lot of nigong too. However, he believes he should be able to endure at least this much and promises to succeed as much as he cares about Xiaobmeng. Xiaobmeng remarks that Chen Yo-woon seems to be capable of saying some commendable things and declares that today's training ends here. He advises Chen Yo-woon not to forget the breathing method and the flow. He must ensure he knows it well. Xiaobmeng adds that he will leave Chen Yo-woon now and instructs him to take care of himself. Chen Yo-woon expresses gratitude. As the morning sun rises, he thinks to himself that surely he will be able to build up nigong in a week. After a while, at the Demonic Academy practice field, Lee Hwa Myung observes the cadets and reflects that as expected, those kids have become the leaders of their groups. He notices that many cadets have bruised faces from the events of the previous night. The reason the instructors were not at the dorms on the first day, he recalls, was to encourage the students to fight each other and establish ranks themselves. He believes that Group 12 should have the candidate from the Poison Clan leading it, but instead, Cadet 18 is the leader. Looking at them, he can see evidence of a brutal fight. He remarks that to dare attack a prince possessing a black name tag, Cadet 18 is not only skilled but also courageous. Ho Jin Chang suggests starting the cadet training. He acknowledges the command and instructs the cadets to stand at attention. Ho Jin Chang announces that for 7 days, starting today, every morning in the auditorium on his right, they will learn the basic tactics and strategies. In the afternoon, following lunch, they will train here at the practice field. He asks if they understand, to which they all respond affirmatively. He then directs them to move to the auditorium, telling Group 1 to move forward, and they comply. Chin Moo-kium looks at Poison Clan member Chin Jong-sum, teasingly thinking how could he fall into ranks like that. As expected, the Poison Clan is nothing without poison, if it is not. He reflects that Chin Jong-sum is lowering himself below even the lower clans. The cadet gets angry at him. Chin Jong-sum looks at Baek-gi and thinks if he is Baek-gi from a top clan. He feels insulted and thinks Baek-gi is enjoying playing that stupid leader game by himself. He resolves to make him regret being in the same group as him. After a while, at the Demonic Academy dorms, Group 8 instructor Im Pyong arrives and calls for Cadet 3, Chin Moo-kium. Chin Moo-kium bows down and asks if he called for him. Im Pyong acknowledges that his performance during the formation training was quite satisfactory. Chin Moo-kium responds that he is flattered. Im Pyong then informs him that Cadet 7 will have to stay in the infirmary for 2 weeks. Chin Moo-kium asks if it's for 2 weeks. He confirms, stating that's what the doctor said, and even if Cadet 7 has memorized the theory, practicing will be a problem. He wonders if someone without Nigong like Cadet 7 will be able to catch up. Im Pyong adds that he will visit Cadet 7 again today, and for now it's their free time, so they should do their best whether they are training or just reviewing. Chinmu Kium and his peers bow down and respond affirmatively. After a while, Chinmu Kium becomes angry and kicks someone. A cadet tries to say something. He interrupts, telling the cadet to be quiet, as poking at that filthy temper will only make it harder for them. He questions how someone can be in the infirmary for 2 weeks. Loyal clan member Cadet 80 Jahayan suggests that if it's what the doctor said, it wouldn't be a lie. He asserts that it's obvious the person is just pretending to be injured. Chinmu Kium hits the pillar and expresses frustration, stating that the damned rascal with his filthy bloodline makes his teeth grind just thinking of him lying there comfortably. Jahayan advises him to calm down and suggests that rather than getting angry for no reason, he should consider whispering something slowly in the person's ear. The scene shifts 4 days later. Baek Jong Myung cries out, expressing frustration that it's been 5 days and he still hasn't had any patience, and he feels like he's dying of boredom. He mentions Chin Yo-woon, stating that surely that kid wouldn't be his last patient. Suddenly, someone aggressively bangs on the door, startling him. He asks what happened. Im Pyong enters, carrying a cadet in an unconscious state on his back, and explains that his cadet got hurt while training with real swords. Im Pyong didn't pull out the sword in case it worsened the injury, opting instead to bring him here. Baek Jong Myung instructs Im Pyong to move the cadet to a bed. He thinks to himself that finally a patient has arrived. Baek Jong Myung then proceeds to stitch the wound, remarking that the treatment is almost complete, as expected from a student of the best, and it's all because he didn't pull out the sword. Im Pyong asks about his condition and remarks that fortunately he did not injure any of his vitals, so he's very lucky. Baek Jong Myung responds, stating that it seems he was worried for no reason, but it appears that he does show concern for his students. He mentions that until the second test, they are his responsibility, but 2 of them are already in the infirmary. Baek Jong Myung adds that he has stitched the wound, but it seems like the wound is deep, so he will need to be hospitalized. Im Pyong inquires about hospitalization. Baek Jong Myung clarifies that it won't be as long as Cadet 7's stay, just 3 days should be enough. Im Pyong then says that for now, he will be back after the afternoon training is over, and he requests him to take care of Cadet 23. He leaves the room, unable to believe that this has happened just as they have begun training with real swords. It will be difficult to avoid writing apologies. After a while, Cadet 23 wakes up and notices some surgical items on the table. He picks up a scalpel and asks if he should begin by ensuring he can't walk. He holds Chin Yo-woon's leg and states that he is only doing this to survive, urging him not to blame him. He attempts to cut his leg, but a surge of mana flow interrupts him, causing him to scream in shock. Chin Yo-woon wakes up, observes him falling to the floor, and remarks that it is as he expected. After a while, Cadet 23 wakes up and wonders if he fainted, and if so, why. He finds himself badly tied with rope and questions who did this. Chin Yo-woon appears and admits to being the one who tied him up. He inquires how he managed to do so. Chin Yo-woon responds, asking what he means by how, and explains that while he was unconscious, he simply tied him up and placed him on the bed. Cadet 23 ponders how he could have fainted, but before addressing that, he assesses that if he's not supposed to have extreme internal damage, he seems perfectly fine, contradicting what he's saying. He notices a mirror, shocked to see his hair gone, and exclaims that he is bald. He realizes he can't feel it, and laments the absence of the smooth texture of his hair. He screams, unable to accept that he's bald. Chin Yo-woon slaps him and commands him to shut up. He falls, prompting him to question if he fainted. After a while, he comes back to his senses and sees Chin Yo-woon sitting near him. He remarks that he's calmed down now and asks what Chin Yo-woon is even trying to say with a gag in his mouth. He reflects that he initially thought Chin Yo-woon was just naive when he first saw him at the entrance ceremony, but he can't believe this is what he's actually like and wonders who exactly he is. Chin Yo-woon shows him a knife and says he sees, then asks how he thinks he has survived this long. He explains that there have been attempts at assassination every once in a while, with men like him who would try to poison him. He then asks how many he thinks there are and places the knife on his neck. He warns that he knows he was fooling around with this earlier, but wonders if he knows how much it would hurt if he got stabbed. He warns that he could even die, then removes the gag from his mouth and asks who made him do this. He commands him to talk. Cadet 23 asks what he is saying, stating that he does not know what he is talking about, and if he stabs him in this infirmary, doesn't he think he will get blamed? He questions whether Chin Yo-woon is unaware of the rules regarding training and duels at the Demonic Academy, explaining that students cannot harm others outside of those contexts. Chin Yo-woon responds, saying he expected that he wouldn't tell him so easily. He teases him, remarking that obviously, even if he tortured him, he wouldn't open his mouth and tell him. Cadet 23 wonders what Chin Yo-woon thinks he can do and speculates that he probably didn't expect him to be this tough. Chin Yo-woon asserts that they will just have to see if he opens his mouth or not, then puts the rope on his mouth again, walks away, and instructs him to wait there. After a while, Chin Yo-woon arrives with a box of needles and remarks that there weren't many things where he used to live, but there are so many things here. He ponders what he is going to do with those. Chin Yo-woon laughs and twists his hand back. He wonders how someone with no martial arts training can be this strong and questions why he is trying to open his hand and what he is going to do. Chin Yo-woon picks up a needle and says it's going to hurt a little, then pushes the needle. He tries to scream, but Chin Yo-woon tells him to stop overreacting, reminding him that he said he wouldn't open his mouth even with torture, so he should think of this as revenge. After a while, the Cadet 23 comes back to his senses and falls to the floor. Chin Yo-woon asks if it hurts a lot and mentions that he fainted twice. He wonders if they should do his other hand, but he moves his head in a gesture of refusal. Chin Yo-woon asks if he finally feels like talking now, then removes the rope from his mouth, commenting that he should have done that at the beginning. The cadet thinks to himself that this guy is crazy. He would have died or gone crazy after enduring that, and he should just tell him now. Chin Yo-woon asks if it was Chin Mu-jeom or not. He asks how he knew. Chin Yo-woon responds that he's curious as to how he knows. He confirms that it was indeed Chin Mu-jeom. Chin Yo-woon acknowledges this, thanking the consideration of the great Chin Mu-jeom and mentioning that their instructor comes every day to give him lessons. He states that he knows in great detail which group he is in and who else is in the group. He admits he already guessed it but wanted to hear it from the cadet's own mouth. He identifies him as 23 Hyobong and reflects on how someone said this guy was nothing, but now sees him as a monster, hiding his strength and acting as if he has none. He can't even imagine how strong he will become once he improves further. Chin Yo-woon acknowledges that he's gained some valuable information thanks to him, but he needs to go to sleep, suggesting they end it there. He questions if he's serious. Chin Yo-woon asks about what happened earlier. He assures him that he won't tell anyone about it and beats his head on the floor, pleading for Chin Yo-woon to take his anger out on him. Chin Yo-woon moves forward, places 2 fingers on his head, and twists. He realizes he has no Nigong and falls unconscious, thinking that he's fooling everyone. Meanwhile, Xiaob Meng runs on the wall and thinks to himself that he did not expect the kid to learn it so quickly. The scene shifts to a day before, when Xiaob Meng sits with Chin Yo-woon, practicing some magic. He reflects on how strong Chin Yo-woon has become. In just 5 days, he was able to acquire Nijing. Normally, it would take at least 2 to 3 weeks, maybe even a month. He surpasses Xiaob Meng's expectations, proving himself as a real talent. Xiaob Meng had originally planned to help him acquire Nigong in about 2 weeks and then teach him basic techniques and breathing methods, but now he realizes he'll have to change his plan. After a while, Chin Yo-woon greets Xiaob Meng and informs him that his student, Chin Yo-woon, sends a morning greeting to his teacher. Xiaob Meng acknowledges this and asks where Chin Yo-woon put it. Chin Yo-woon responds that he has it under his bed and Xiaob Meng instructs him to bring it there. He agrees, saying yes, sir. He then explains the Black Dragon Ball, which is made by the Demonic Academy with medicinal herbs. It is a medicinal ball given to the students who pass the first test. If absorbed properly, it allows one to acquire 20 years worth of Nigong after consumption. However, after it's consumed, the body becomes resistant, so the effect is less effective in a second dose. He returns with the Black Dragon Ball, placing it in a box and opening it in front of Xiaob Meng. Xiaob Meng believes it still carries a nasty smell, and if this kid takes it, he should be able to receive a maximum of 20 years of Nigong, after which he should be able to take care of himself. He notices Hyobong's leg and inquires about the kid over there. Upon closer inspection, he sees that the kid is badly tied with ropes and asks if something has been done to his blood point. Chin Yo-woon explains that he came after Dr. Beak left. Seob Meng questions why he came after him. Chin Yo-woon mentions that he heard that since yesterday, the 5th day since they entered the academy, training has been conducted with real swords. He suspects he was deliberately stabbed with a real sword in order to get close to him. Seob Meng demands to know how dare he do such a thing in the infirmary of the demonic academy, and whether he is unaware that he could be kicked out if discovered. He mentions it appears he has the guts to not be afraid of it, or this could imply that someone ordered him to do this. He remarks that by his reaction, it seems he already knows who it is. Chin Yo-woon identifies the individual as the man from the Loyal Clan who is in the same group as him. He inquires about the Loyal Clan and remarks that he has never encountered any good men from that clan. He thinks it's a tough family that has a lot of troublemakers, but he supposes he can't say anything against them and remarks that it seems like he has a pretty tough life. Chin Yo-woon responds that it's alright, he is used to it. He thinks it's because he said it like that, it makes it sad and slaps Hyo Bong. He explains that if he pokes his blood point with less than a year's worth of Nijin, it wears off after only a couple of hours. Seob Meng states that it would take at least 10 years for Nigong to do it properly and inquires if he understands. He affirms that he will keep that in mind. He picks up the black dragon ball box and holds it. Seob Meng then states that he can now consume the black dragon ball. When he asks if he should simply swallow it, Seob Meng responds negatively, explaining that chewing and then swallowing makes the absorption of the medicine more effective. He puts the dragon ball in his mouth and thinks about the putrid smell, already anticipating its bitterness. As he chews, he finds it extremely bitter with a foul odor, causing his tongue to feel paralyzed and inducing a desire to vomit. Seob Meng instructs him that if he has swallowed it, he should begin using his breathing technique. He acknowledges with a yes, sir. After a while, they both sit down, and Seob Meng again performs some magic on his back. He mentions that now, this teacher of his will help him absorb the medicine well and suggests starting. He responds with yes, please take care of him. Seob Meng begins to infuse mana into him. The nanomachine notifies that a substance aiding in energy activity has been introduced to his body. It reproduces and reacts to the energy flowing within his body and inquires if he will accept this absorption by promoting a quicker cycle. Chin Yo-woon considers that he does not fully comprehend what is being said, but he supposes that it is intended to help with absorption, and he agrees to accept it. The nanomachine notifies that it is stimulating the metabolism of the body. Seob Meng observes his body and wonders how this can be, given that he was born with the body of a war god. He reflects that it's almost as if his body is absorbing all of the medicine and amplifying it, even though he should only be absorbing up to 80% of it. He realizes he is nervous about this for no reason. After a while, Chin Yo-woon observes changes in his body. He asks how it feels to use Nigong. Seob Meng responds that he did well and notes that he is quite sweaty this time too, indicating that he was able to acquire 5 times the usual amount of Nigong. Chin Yo-woon then inquires about the duration of 30 years. Seob Meng explains that it's just a rough estimate. The other students will be absorbing the medicine on their own, so they might not even be able to absorb half of it. Chin Yo-woon bows down, expressing gratitude, and acknowledges that it's all because of Seob Meng's help, stating that it wouldn't have been possible without him. Seob Meng modestly responds that he is just very lucky. Chin Yo-woon then reflects that if that's the case, then his luck must be attributed to Nano, and thanks to Seob Meng. The nanomachine notifies that it is programmed to assist him. As the sun rises, Seob Meng remarks that it's already this late, and that he will have to head back soon. He calls out to him, and when Seob Meng asks what it is, he requests to start learning his blade skill formation from tomorrow onwards. Seob Meng smiles and assures him that he can, but he won't have a lot of time on his hands, so he should be prepared. He agrees with a yes. After some time, all the cadets gather on the ground. Chen Mu Kiam laughs, remarking that it's a very nice morning. Yahello comments that it seems like he's in a good mood, to which Chen Mu Kiam credits him. Yahello expresses gratitude, but he stifles a laugh, mentioning that by now, he must be struggling a lot since his limbs are broken. He laughs and adds that he's been waiting for him to get on the floor and crawl like a bug, which even makes his skin itch. After a while, Beek Jong Mayan laughs upon seeing Cadet 23 Hyo Bong without hair and asks where all his hair has gone overnight. Hyobong feels unable to remain calm because of the guy next to him. Hyobong moves the curtain and apologizes, explaining that he laughed so much, and he'll cover him. Hyobong believes it's too late. Baek Jong-myung also notices Chin Yo-woon sleeping and concludes that something obviously happened all night. He prepares to leave, thinking that he doesn't have to worry about that, as his master instructed him to focus on treatment and not to question anything. 2 days later, the scene shifts to Magic Hotel Group 8's accommodation. Chin Moo-kium remarks that it's interesting and questions if it shouldn't be reported. Hyobong kneels down in front of him and confesses that he attempted to sever the muscle vein of Cadet 7, who had a severe internal injury. He explains that the doctor was waiting all the time, even during the night, and managed to heal him. Chin Moo-kium asks incredulously if the doctor didn't sleep, and he isn't accepting it as an excuse. Hyobong cites Confucius, saying that he who wakes up in the morning moves. Chin Moo-kium then asks if he also woke up and how attentive his ears are. He attacks Hyobong, pushing him to the floor and kicking him, questioning why he can't do things straightforwardly. Yahello stops him and tells him to wait. He asks why. Yahello then asks if he knows the name of the doctor currently in the infirmary. Hyobong responds that it's Baek Jong-myung, as he has heard. He adds that he has heard about him a few times. Chin Moo-kium asks if he knows the name. Hyobong suggests that he must be a disciple of Baek Jong-woo. He believes that he comes from a poisonous sect and isn't focused on medicinal practices, but rather poison. Despite this, he became the primary doctor of the church. He adds that even though he was a member of the lawmaker, he heard that he ranks 30th in the academy. He concludes that it may not be exactly him, but if it's his disciple, it may not work out. Chin Moo-kium remarks that it was then a waste of time to send this guy and warns him not to even dream of supporting his sect. Hyobong wonders about this. The scene shifts to a flashback. Chin Moo-kium approaches Hyobong and asks if he is indeed him and if he would work exclusively for him. He assures him not to worry, mentioning that he doesn't know that Hyobong is a candidate for the small school leader of Bakma Bell. Even if he is released from his current predicament, Chin Moo-kium promises to unconditionally support Hyobong's weak sect. The scene shifts to the present. Chin Moo-kium beats Hyobong badly. He wonders if he has given him the answer to what he promised and if he was trying to tell the truth. He thinks, yes, keep getting angry, let's see if that's possible after he comes. He removes his hood and asks why Hyobong is wearing one. He is surprised to see him bald and remarks that his head is shining, asking if he knows how it looks to see his face reflected on his head. Some cadets observe him beating Hyobong. He wishes for it to be quiet for a while and anticipates that the lodging will be noisy again soon. Chin Moo-kium prepares to leave and says to Yahello that he is upset, suggesting they go. Yahello follows him, agreeing. Hyobong watches them leave and thinks to himself that Chin Moo-kium will meet his end. Meanwhile, Chin Yo-woon inquires if Senator Baek knows how to do things like martial arts. Baek Jong-myung responds that he does not know at all and that he only learned medicine. The scene shifts to 7 days later at Myo-shi Magistrate's medical office. Chin Yo-woon practices and Seob-meng observes him. Seob-meng thinks that this guy is a natural genius. In just a few days, he has shown only a few mistakes and corrected his posture a little. There are no distractions in his posture, and his movements look natural. Seob-meng considers that if he continues to polish his skills, there will be no problem at all with the breathing operation. He then mentions the posture. Chin Yo-woon assumes the posture and thinks that thanks to Nano scanning the master's posture, he can reproduce it fully. However, if he does that from the beginning, it will be suspicious and slightly slower. He demonstrates all the postures. Seob-meng notes that there are a total of 24 postures in the Nigong technique. 3 postures consist of a total of 8 moves, and it takes a lot of time to get the basics right. He realizes that he did not teach him how to connect the posture moves. He reflects that if only 1 or 2 more months were given, it would be a talent he could have trained properly, but the time is too short. He comments that he is a good and truly interesting student. Chin Yo-woon acknowledges the praise, calling it great. He hands him a page and instructs him to take it, explaining that it contains the physical and internal operation method of the Nigong technique. He expresses his intention to teach him this personally, but since today is the last day, he suggests that if he is smart enough, he will be able to learn the basics on his own. He adds that he will see him again later and advises him not to be lazy but to practice diligently. He bows down and thanks him, promising to meet his expectations. He responds with enthusiasm, stating that it's great, and picks up his blade imbued with magic power, identifying it as the master's Gwangmudu Wild Dagger. Chin Yo-woon holds the weapon and remarks that it doesn't seem heavier than he thought. He mentions that the weight of a typical sword is about 2 or 3 jun, but Gwangmudo the knife according to their company is only about 1.5. Chin Yo-woon asks if it is because of the Nigong method. He responds affirmatively, praising him for being so smart, and demonstrates some moves with the blades, cutting through the materials. Chin Yo-woon examines a piece of what was cut and comments that the sword is very sharp, thinking Beak would be annoyed when he sees this. He explains that even if the width of the sword is narrow and the weight is light, it is made of a special material, and the sharpness and hardness make it deserving of being called the best. He then instructs him to step back and says he will show him something interesting. He demonstrates some moves and tells him to take a closer look, explaining that this is the master's approach method. Chin Yo-woon instructs the Nano machine to prepare to scan. The Nano machine notifies that the motion scan has started by the user's command. Seob Miog runs on the walls after finishing teaching Chin Yo-woon. Lee Hwa Myung stands aside with lead guardian Merikium and remarks, finally, Wu Beob is leaving. Merikium acknowledges that he did well pretending not to know. Lee Hwa Myung questions how he can go against their orders and expresses his relief that he no longer needs to monitor Wu Beob's movements in and out of his mouse hole. He suggests reassigning guards to the second-floor hall, as they would have had plenty of rest. Merikium agrees and mentions that he will be leaving now. He asks about his concern for the 7th prince. Merikium responds because that's fair. Lee Hwa Myung questions if he's suggesting that there's no finger that doesn't hurt when one bites all 10 of them. Merikium uses his magic to disappear and warns him not to question the sky. He comments that as expected of the Wind King, one never knows where he goes in a moment, and if he decides to run away, then it would be impossible to catch him. He questions if 10 days will really make everything fair. Meanwhile, Beak Jong Myung observes Chin Yo-woon and notices that he is always up when he comes to work, but he's still sleeping today. He asks what's up and remarks that it is the last time he can rest peacefully like this. Once he's released, he will go through a lot. He advises him to sleep a little more and leaves the room. The Nano machine notifies that there is a change to the user's muscle development for the butterfly techniques starting expression simulation, with 80% completion to the data goal, and a change to veins, with 75% completion, and 1 hour left until 100% completion. 1 hour later, Beak Jong Myung is sleeping on the table when he hears some noise. He gets up and asks what happened. He sees Chin Yo-woon vomiting. Placing his hand on his head, he wonders why he is suddenly vomiting and shivering so much. He asks if Yo-woon is okay if he is feeling unwell somewhere. Beak Jong Myung advises him to let it all out first. He lies down on the bed and suggests he lie down since it seems like the symptoms have calmed down a bit. Checking his pulse, he asks what this is. How can someone's pulse, who has been lying down the whole time, be like this, as if the body was completely overworked? The Nano machine notifies that his body's response to the body evaluation has stabilized. Chin Yo-woon screams in pain. Beak Jong Myung wonders what is happening, as he suddenly seems so stable, something he has never heard of from his teacher. He decides to leave, saying whatever, let's just leave him to sleep. It's nearly lunch soon, so he will just eat. After a while, Chin Yo-woon wakes up, sees his body, and thinks that the strength in his hands is completely different from what it was 6 hours ago. He realizes that he knows just how many teachers he went through to train himself, and if someone were to learn that he earned this body in just 6 hours, he thinks he'd be frightened, right? The scene shifts to a flashback, where Seob Meng demonstrates his moves with the blade to Chin Yo-woon. Chin Yo-woon thinks it's amazing to create this pressure with just the starting expression and no Nigong. He asks Nano if it has completed the scan. The Nano machine notifies that yes, all scanning has been completed. Seob Meng asks if he watched properly. Chin Yo-woon confirms that he did. Seob Meng expresses regret, saying it's a shame he couldn't teach him starting expressions properly, but today marks the end. However, he believes that Yo-woon will be able to master the butterfly technique just by watching his teacher. Chin Yo-woon thanks him for many of his teachings. Seob Meng encourages him to keep at it. Chin Yo-woon replies with a yes. He says once he returns to the motto house, it will be very difficult. He advises not to lose and leaves from there. Chin Yo-woon thinks there's at least one person who cares for him here. He tells himself that he should live up to their expectations and asks Nano if he has finished analyzing the scanned moves. The Nano machine notifies that yes, it has been completed. According to the analysis, to acquire the body needed to use this move, his muscles and veins need to go through significant changes with an estimated time of 6 hours. He questions why it would take 6 hours. The scene shifts back to the present. He begins his practice sessions, thinking it's great that he has only used one starting expression, which happens to be the same as the teacher's. Now, there are 2 starting expressions. He senses someone's presence and thinks he can feel someone walking in the hallway. He pauses, considering if he has always been this sensitive. He wonders if his senses have become sharper as he changes his body. He declares that all preparations are complete. Baek Jong-myung enters, brushing his teeth, and asks when he woke up and what's complete. He replies that he is ready to be discharged, realizing that the presence he felt in the hallway was Dr. Baek. He wears his uniform. Baek Jong-myung remarks that he doesn't even have any other patients and asks what he's going to do when he leaves. He responds that there will be more soon. Baek Jong-myung asks if he truly thinks so and adds that it's better for there to be no patients. He thanks him, acknowledging that he has imposed on him for a while. Baek Jong-myung assures him that it's alright, mentioning that he will be going through a lot, but will be praying for him. He leaves the room and Baek Jong-myung sits alone, pondering that now he doesn't even have anything to do, wondering if he should just sleep. Meanwhile, Chin Yo-woon stands outside the room, reflecting on whether the doctor pretended not to know that Seob Meng taught him martial arts. He contemplates how uncomfortable it would have been the whole time he was in the clinic and decides he will never forget the doctor's consideration for him. He rests his head against the door, thinking about the patients he so desires and resolves to send them to him for sure. After a while, all cadets gather at Motto House Grand Armament for their afternoon group training. Some cadets observe Chin Yo-woon gossiping and one cadet identifies him as the heir of the other clan in their group. Another cadet remarks that it has been 2 weeks. Chin Moo-kium notices him and thinks to himself that he is finally here of peasant blood. Im Pyong sees him and announces his arrival. Chin Yo-woon confirms and Im Pyong asks if his body is fine now. He replies that he is completely cured. Im Pyong remarks that it's fortunate as he explained it to him in theory, but he remembers his position. Chin Yo-woon affirms. Im Pyong hands him a sword and shield, instructing him to go in that direction with the others. As he passes near Chin Moo-kium, the latter asks him if he only came now because he was scared. Chin Yo-woon walks away without saying a word. Chin Moo-kium thinks to himself that this man ignored him. Chin Yo-woon thinks to himself not to get too excited yet, as both Chin Moo-kium and he will show him properly in a while. Im Pyong announces that they will commence practical training using real swords. He emphasizes the importance of paying proper attention and maintaining correct distancing. He warns that if the same accident as before happens, he will expel the offender from the academy with the authority of a leader and asks if they understand. They respond with motto. He shows them a red flag, and they all begin training. He observes that even though Chin Moo-kium's personality is haughty and atrocious, he effectively controls his teammates as a clan heir should. However, the problem lies with Chin Yo-woon. He intentionally placed him in a position with the least movement and hoped he wouldn't make a mistake. Im Pyong notes that Chin Yo-woon is performing better than expected and appears to be keeping up with what the other teammates are doing. He then instructs them to line up their shields properly and maintain their posture and lineups. He praises them, saying they are doing well and instructs them not to move until he commands. 15 minutes later, he reprimanded them, stating that he had instructed them not to move, questioning who made a sound and asking if they were unable to follow instructions properly. He questions whether they believe they will be able to defeat the other groups in the second test with this level of performance and reminds them to pay attention. He observes Chin Yo-woon and wonders how someone who has been training until now can perform so well. He questions whether Chin Yo-woon is truly the same person who was lying down in the clinic the whole time. He moves a yellow flag, thinking that he needs to reassess him, and then commands them to change formation, surround the enemy in a semicircle, move forward by half a step, and take big steps. He observes their performance and compliments them, saying very good. Chenmu Kiam observes Chen Yo-woon, berates him, and wonders why he isn't making any mistakes. He wonders if Chen Yo-woon believes he will simply watch him be successful. He connects with Ya-hyun through telepathy and instructs him to nod his head if he can hear him, and to do as he says for the third lineup. Ya-hyun confirms, saying he understands. Im-pyong then announces another change in the lineup, instructing them to quickly stack the shields to 3 levels. Chen Yo-woon thinks it's not difficult, perhaps because Nano imported the simulation video. Im-pyong directs them to stick their swords out through the holes once the shields are stacked, emphasizing the importance of maintaining speed even if they are being cautious. Meanwhile, Ya-hyun contemplates that he can see Chen Yo-woon's vulnerable spot entirely exposed, thinking that someone of peasant blood should be crawling on the ground. He attempts to kick Chen Yo-woon, but Chen Yo-woon notices him. Ya-hyun wonders if he was detected and decides to use a little bit of Nigong since he doesn't even know martial arts, but resolves to use all his strength to kick. However, Chen Yo-woon employs his magic power and effortlessly throws him far away. Chenmu Kiam notices him and considers the rebound. Ya-hyun realizes he was catapulted off, acknowledging that the other person's Nigong is much stronger than his own. Im-pyong approaches him and asks if it's him again. Chen Yo-woon secretly pushes his ankle, causing him to still feel pain. Chen Yo-woon looks at him and laughs, which angers Ya-hyun, who thinks to himself that a peasant dares to laugh at him. Im-pyong notices Ya-hyun grinding his teeth and remarks that he can't seem to come to his senses. Ya-hyun explains it's not that, but his butt hurts. Confused, Im-pyong asks about his butt, then hits him, commenting that the kid is completely lost. He reveals that Ya-hyun was the one who stabbed number 23 in the back last time, and informs him that he won't have any free time for the next 4 days. Until bedtime, he will be undergoing intense training with his leader. Ya-hyun attempts to say something, but Im-pyong angrily dismisses him, stating that he's still making excuses. Ya-hyun responds with motto. A cadet whispers that it serves him right, as he was acting all high and mighty with Chenmu Kiam backing him, and he brought it on himself. Chenmu Kiam becomes angry with Chen Yo-woon. After a while, Im-pyong informs Ya-hyun that he won't have any free time for the next 4 days. Until bedtime, he will be receiving intense training with his leader. Lee Hwa-myung observes them from a little distance away. Im-pyong moves his hand as if to hit Ya-hyun, remarking that he's still making excuses. Lee Hwa-myung thinks that Chen Yo-woon's Nigong is stronger than he thought, even if the right guardian taught him. It's still strange that the Baldy should have around 30 years of training worth of Nigong since he took the medicine ball, yet Chen Yo-woon's exceeds that. He considers that there's no way the Xiaobmeng drunkard taught him properly and wonders if he has a physique that can naturally absorb the complete effect of the medicine ball. Lee Hwa-myung concludes that as expected, it can't be explained any other way. Even if he is a half-blood, a tiger's child is a tiger. The standoff between 2 heirs in the same group is about to get interesting. After a while, at the Grand Armament Great Hall, Im-pyong sits with his cadets to eat food and instructs them to begin eating. They respond with motto and start eating. Chen Yo-woon eats his food and reflects that if this is chicken marinated in soy sauce, it truly was torture to only have been able to eat white porridge for 14 days. He wonders if Chenmu Kiam is going to glare at him throughout the entire meal, deciding it would be better to simply enjoy the food for now. He admits he doesn't know why Chenmu Kiam hates him so much, but he cannot forgive the actions of the 6th clan either. He imagines Chenmu Kiam wouldn't understand the feeling of watching his mother's death without being able to do anything, and looks forward to surpassing him. He resolves to trample over all obstacles from now on. Im-pyong announces that since mealtime is over, Friday's schedules will now be wrapped up. He instructs everyone except for number 80 to disband. He walks away, calling for them to disband. Chen Yo-woon observes the dorm and thinks that Group 8's quarters were room 8 on the 1st floor, making it easy to remember since it corresponds. Chenmu Kiam asks where he is trying to go without his permission. Chen Yo-woon thinks to himself that he does not disappoint his expectations and always has leftovers with him. He wonders if Chenmu Kiam wants to act like a master wherever he goes. A cadet identifies him as the Spring Clan's heir, while another cadet asks who the guy in front of him is. The first cadet responds that he is the 7th heir, according to rumors. He says it should be fun. Just then, Chenwon Ryan from the Sound Clan arrives with her cadets and sees Chen Yo-woon and Chenmu Kiam. Chin Moo Kiam thinks to himself that many have gathered, and wonders if they shall start. He moves near Chin Yo Woon and addresses him as Peasant Blood. He inquired if it was easygoing, or if lying on a bed in the clinic was bothersome for him. He questions if he is annoyed, and if he is insulting the Lord. Chin Moo Kiam asks what he means, and he elaborates, asking if calling him Peasant Blood is not insulting the Lord. Chin Moo Kiam asks for clarification, and he questions if his status is so high that he can insult the Lord, who is like a god to them. The cadets start gossiping about it. Chin Moo Kiam thinks to himself that he is going to completely disdain and crush him in front of everyone, but instead he is the one receiving that treatment. Chin Won Ryan thinks that Spring Clan men really are stupid. Sword Clan's Chin Kyung Woon arrives and wonders why he is getting so worked up over such lowly, dull humans. Chin Moo Kiam grabs Chin Yo Woon's shirt, moves to punch him, and declares that he will crush his arrogant mouth. Chin Yo Woon hits him back and asks what he is trying to say. He starts bleeding and exclaims that this peasant dares to hit him. He uses the draft horse technique and moves to attack him, but Chin Yo Woon quickly moves back. He asks if he is running away. Chin Kyun Woon is shocked to see him running and thinks about weightlessness. Chin Moo Kiam asks his friends what they are doing and says to get that shithead. They agree and run to catch him. Chin Moo Kiam holds his broken nose and thinks about how Chin Yo Woon dared to punch him first and run away, realizing that if he had just let him be, he wouldn't be considered human. Meanwhile, Chin Yo Woon is running in the jungle, and some cadets are following him to catch him and ask why he is so fast. Chin Moo Kiam thinks something is weird. It's as if he's running at just the right speed for them to not be able to catch up to him. He chides his friend and asks why he is hesitating, then tells him he will go by himself and move. He runs even faster, thinking he will catch him, crush his face, and then destroy all the bones in his body. Chin Yo Woon stops after reaching a point. He asks if he is done running. Chin Yo Woon dismisses the notion of running as a joke. He moves to attack and says there is no reason for him to show himself to the others yet. Chin Yo Woon is attacked by him with his power, and he tries to defend himself, shocked to see his skills. He thinks he has defended the attack using 7-star aerodynamics, but he is still pushed back, realizing his aerodynamics are strong. He asks how he knows martial arts. Thinking back, he realizes his weightless movement was quite fast, and he had absolutely no Nigong in the first test. Chin Yo Woon thinks to himself that he is becoming flustered as he expected, and continues with this momentum. Other cadets also come there to help Chin Moo Kiam. He employs the grafting technique's second sub-expression and the night border to attack, but his opponent moves back. He considers whether he should have avoided it and then punches him. He uses the Spring Clan technique's second sub-expression, continuous batting, to attack, but his opponent defends himself. Chin Yo Woon believes he is still unable to match his opponent's Nigong. His Nigong must have been higher than other students even before he was admitted. He thinks his opponent's Nigong must be even higher since he took the magic pill, yet he can still stand his ground. He realizes he needs to attack his opponent without giving him any time to counterattack. Chin Yo Woon demonstrates some magical moves. The cadets are shocked to see them, and one cadet asks how he can use that type of martial arts. As he moves to attack, Chin Moo Kiam kicks him and throws him away. Observing him, Chin Yo Woon thinks he's good with sub-expressions, but has no idea how to respond to the enemy's attacks. He lies on the floor, covering his face, and thinks he was only focused on the techniques and did not see that kick coming. He admits he was pretty surprised that he used some skills that did not suit him, but he can tell he is just improvising. He laughs and says it's exactly as expected. He is just trying to imitate others without knowing his own limits. Chin Yo Woon thinks if he realizes that he only learned this technique with 2 sub-expressions and that he also does not have enough actual experience. He thinks he underestimated Chin Moo Kiam and who knew expression would make such a big difference. Chin Moo Kiam states he does not know how he learned martial arts. He employs the Spring Clan technique's 5th sub-expression and double submission to attack and says he will ask all these questions later. Chin Yo Woon wonders what he should do, and which sub-expression he needs to use. The Nano machine notifies that danger from an external force has been sensed, increasing eye functions in response to danger, and operating defense mode through the battle tutorial. Chin Moo Kiam moves to attack, but he sidesteps and hits him with a punch, causing him to bleed, and thinks this is not a technique. Chin Yo Woon also wonders what this is. The nanomachine notifies that the optional built-in self-defense martial arts, boxing, has been used for this tutorial. He inquires about the tutorial. The nanomachine notifies that it indicates independent teaching. They have achieved results through analysis of the opponent's movements every 0.1 second. He thinks he doesn't know what all that means, but it's indicating boxing. It confirms it is. He wonders if it is possible to use the grafting technique instead of boxing. The nanomachine notifies that the analysis has already been completed, so it is possible if he accepts. He decides to accept. Chinmu Kiam asks if he is learning pugilism, and states that it seems he has a card up his sleeve, but that it won't work anymore. The nanomachine notifies that the defense mode is being changed from boxing to grafting technique. He believes he can see where he will be attacked. Chinmu Kiam again attacks him, but he once more moves aside. Chinmu Kiam thinks he has avoided all of his hits. He punches him and throws him away, and he starts bleeding. He thinks if he does his best, if he performs well, and no, his father will abandon that dirty woman and come back to him. The scene shifts to a flashback where his mother places her hands on his head and says he needs to win everything, alright? He agrees. She states it's because he cannot do it properly, it's all because he is bad at everything. If only that dirty woman had not appeared, it's not his fault, and it's all because he cannot do anything properly. She presses his neck and says it's all because he made a mistake. The scene shifts back to the present as he thinks, why does that damn memory have to come up now? He considers if he loses and then moves to attack, saying he would never lose to a peasant person like him. Chin Yo-woon holds his head and throws him on the floor. He states that it's because of a peasant like him. Before he can complete his sentence, Chin Yo-woon interrupts, saying he brought all of this upon himself. Chin Yo-woon stands in the woods, astonished. He remarks that Chin Moo-kyun, whom they couldn't defeat together, has been truly beaten. Chin Moo-kyun questions if they didn't assert just 10 days ago that he possessed absolutely no Nigon. His friend asks what they should do next. He questions if they plan to test him as well, and then take him away. A cadet approaches and asks if he is alright. He contemplates whether, with more authority in addition to strength, everyone would obey him like that. He commands them to proceed while walking by himself. Chin Moo-kyun queries why Chin Yo-woon didn't finish him off properly and sits in front of him. He responds that if the second test wasn't a group task, he would have incapacitated him. Chin Moo-kyun dismisses this as an excuse, calling him peasant blood. Chin Yo-woon retorts that he will indeed act if Chin Moo-kyun continues to provoke him. Chin Moo-kyun challenges him to do it and insults him. He points out that he can't even rise by himself and scoffs at Chin Moo-kyun's empty threats. Meanwhile, he swiftly jumps and moves away, declaring his departure despite the ongoing conversation. Chin Moo-kyun demands that he halt immediately. As he runs at a rapid pace, he reflects on the danger he faces, acknowledging that without Nanomachine, he would have been defeated. He acknowledges that while he has learned martial arts faster than anyone else, he cannot disregard the importance of experience. Merely mastering the formation of the butterfly dance will not suffice if he aims to attain a higher status. He needs Nigon and experience. However, he realizes that the 6th clan will not leave him alone as he progresses. Therefore, he decides to focus on mastering what he can use at present. He summons Nanomachine and inquires about the percentage of its functions he has utilized so far. Nanomachine responds by stating that, according to user records, he has currently accessed only 3% of all Nanomachine functions. He wonders why it's only 3%. Nanomachine informs him that he has utilized 3 out of over 300 functions. Surprised, he comments that he has only utilized that much. Nanomachine clarifies that, according to the records saved in the internal memory, he has not exceeded 3 out of 10 of Nanomachine's functions. He realizes this implies there are more functions available for him to utilize. He then requests Nanomachine to provide detailed information about all the functions it can perform. Nanomachine responds by stating that the function manual of the 7th generation Nanomachine will be transferred to his brain and asks if he accepts. He agrees. Additionally, Nanomachine mentions that an additional language, English, will be transferred to aid his comprehension of the manual and asks if he accepts this as well. He confirms his acceptance. He reflects that it's the peculiar language he occasionally speaks in. Nanomachine concurs, and he accepts that explanation. Nanomachine informs him that they are transferring the 7th generation Nanomachine's manual, along with the English language, to his brain, completing the information transfer. He notices that it's a larger amount of information than usual, but he only feels slightly dizzy. He doesn't experience any nausea, which he considers a positive sign. He begins to search through all the functions, realizing that they are all capabilities he can utilize. One function particularly catches his attention: repetitive battle in augmented reality. He concludes that with this, he could accumulate all the necessary experience he needs. Nano Machine explains that motion analysis must be conducted to create this simulation. He wonders if he can have a simulation with Chinmu-Kium. Nano Machine responds that there isn't enough information for that, but a simulation avatar can be created based on their earlier fight. Despite the lack of complete information, he decides to try it out immediately. He asks if this should be okay and notes that it seems like no one else is around. Nano Machine activates the simulation avatar in the user's vision. He responds, stating that this is an avatar in augmented reality, visible only to him. Nano Machine informs him that the simulation settings are being adjusted before the avatar is formed, instructing him to set the avatar's impact percentage on the user. He asks for clarification on what impact percentage means. Nano Machine explains that it refers to the amount of impact he will receive from the avatar's attacks. If he wants it to be the same as normal, he should set it at 100%, but if he wants it to be less, he should set it lower. He decides to set it to 100%. Nano Machine confirms that the simulation will commence with 100% impact. The avatar calls out to him, urging him to come at him as it prepares for the fight. He wonders why this foolishness is also included in the simulation. Meanwhile, he considers the situation positively. Despite being unable to defeat Chinmu-Kium earlier due to the constraints of the second test, it won't matter in this scenario since it's just an avatar. The avatar warns him that if he doesn't come, it will come to him. It then utilizes Spring Roar and the fifth formation of the Spring Clan Fist technique as it rushes towards him. He notes that the avatar's actions mirror reality precisely and slaps it. However, the avatar criticizes his sloppy attack and retaliates with a punch. He questions why he can feel pain. Nano Machine explains that it has replicated the same amount of pain he felt earlier, using information collected previously, and asks if he would like to adjust the impact percentage. He responds that it's fine, they will continue as is. The avatar insults him and urges him to fight back, leading to both of them attempting to defeat each other. After a while, he ponders and asks Nano Machine for the current time. Nano Machine responds that it is currently between 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock in the morning. He remarks that he has fought the avatar 15 times, but only managed to win the last round. Reflecting on the fights, he recalls that in the first bout, he only used the 5 formations and couldn't define himself properly. He simply relied on his body. He concludes that if he were to face Chinmu-Kium with an avatar of this level properly, he wouldn't even come close to his head and would lose immediately. Nano Machine reassures him that his skills will increase with experience, noting that his movements and the frequency of using formations of the butterfly dance are already improving. He remains skeptical, stating that he lost to someone using the same 3 formations and basic movements repeatedly. However, he confidently declares that in 7 days, Chinmu-Kium's avatar will pose no challenge to him. The scene transitions to the Motto House student quarters where Chin-Yo-woon arrives. He inquires about his designated bed. Reflecting, he notes that despite defeating a clan heir, they are clearing a path for him. Cadet 26 Hyo-bong points out his bed and leads him there. Some students glance at him and whisper about his behavior. Chin-Yo-woon questions if there is a reason for the change in attitude, wondering if there is something they want from him. He contemplates that he has already been abandoned by Chinmu-Kium, so there is nothing more to lose and he may be destined to die anyway. Therefore, he decides to take a gamble. Hyo-bong bows before him and expresses a desire to serve Prince Chin-Yo-woon as his master. Some cadets whisper among themselves, questioning the concept of loyalty and an oath to the 7th prince who lacks power. Chin-Yo-woon asks Hyo-bong if he is willing to serve him as his master. Hyo-bong fervently expresses his regret and apologizes for his past bad manners, pleading to be taken in as a servant and offering to do whatever his humble self can. Chin-Yo-woon is taken aback by the offer, reflecting on his own difficulties with trusting others, yet here is someone begging to serve him willingly, without being forced into the role by the Lord's decree. Hyo-bong expresses his gratitude and promises to give his utmost effort. Ya-hyun enters the scene and expresses disbelief at the situation, questioning Hyo-bong about whom he is showing his loyalty to. Hyobong considers Chinmu Kiem and Jaehyun intimidating, but he knows he mustn't show his fear. Chin Yo-woon questions Jaehyun about calling someone else's servant an insect. Meanwhile, Jaehyun retorts that Hyobong is the one acting like an insect by ingratiating himself with others. Hyobong asks Jaehyun to repeat what he said and questions why he is stuttering, insinuating that Jaehyun might be scared. This infuriates Jaehyun, who verbally abuses him and moves to attack, but Chin Yo-woon calmly intervenes, slapping Jaehyun and causing him to fall to the floor. Observing this, Hyobong concludes that Jaehyun is nothing compared to the avatar he faced earlier, affirming his decision to align himself with Chin Yo-woon. He then asks if Jaehyun wants to try again. Chinmu Kiem comments that Hyobong should enjoy it while he can, asserting that nothing has changed just because Chin Yo-woon has acquired a servant before walking away. The cadets whisper among themselves, surprised that Chinmu Kiem walked away from the confrontation. They acknowledge that despite this, the authority of the Spring Clan remains strong, but speculate that Chin Yo-woon may bring about a new change in the Demonic Academy. The scene shifts to a week later on the day of the group type second test. Hyobong, the Grand Armament of Motto House, states that he has taught everything needed, and now it's up to him to perform. Lee Hwa Myung asks if they understand the instructions. He explains that before they begin, they will cast lots. The 4 groups, divided into groups 1 to 4, 5 to 8, and 9 to 12, will cast lots among themselves to determine their opponents. He continues, asking the group leaders from groups 1 to 4 to step forward. As they rearrange themselves, he notes that the group leaders for groups 2 and 3 have changed, similar to group 1, where Chin Mu-yeon of the Dark Clan remains the leader. He adds that previously, Cadet 72 led group 4, and asks if there are probably 2 people for this. Meanwhile, Chin Mu-yeon steps forward and retrieves a card from the box. Lee Hwa Myung announces that the first match will take place between Group 1 and Group 3, while the second match will be between Group 2 and Group 4. One group becomes excited and cheers for their leader. Lee Hwa Myung then instructs the leaders of Groups 5 to 8 to come forward. A cadet observes that 2 people have changed this time as well, and questions if Group 8 is indeed real. Chinwon Raya looks at them and reflects that she had warned Chinmu Kiem many times. He is indeed foolish. The scene shifts to the afternoon following the end of yesterday's training. Chinmu Kiem reflects that they are still engaged in group training, considering his peers as idiots for not realizing that their strategies are being showcased. Deciding there is nothing more to observe, he opts to engage in martial arts training. However, she calls out to him from behind. He turns to look at her, ignoring her, and walks away. She approaches him, asking why he is ignoring her after she calls out to him. He inquires about her intentions, to which she responds that she had thought about it before calling out to him, but he is treating her with indifference. She retorts that he previously referred to Spring Clan members as idiots and instructed her not to talk to him. Growing irritated, she tersely states that she will quickly convey her message and he should listen attentively. He questions if she injured herself, to which she responds that it happened yesterday while she was training alone and someone ambushed her. Chinmu Kiem inquires about who would have the audacity to ambush her. Chinwon Raya explains that she couldn't identify the attackers because they were wearing masks. He retorts that regardless of whether the attacker wore a mask or not, she was targeted due to her carelessness. She protests against his dismissive attitude, asserting that she was not careless around the masked assailant. He questions if she expects him to be cautious because she got injured. She reminds him that there's a high likelihood that the attacker may target him next, given that they are in the same competition group. He asks for clarification, and she reminds him of how they were informed that they would be divided into groups of 4, and then lots would be drawn between teams in the same group to determine their opponents. He wonders about the relevance of this. She asks him to consider why they divided the teams into groups of 4, instead of having all of them compete against each other. He expresses his confusion regarding her statement, while she explains further, urging him to consider that since they were informed about the composition of the teams in advance, the teams are aware of their opponents. He comprehends her point, suggesting that she implies the advance announcement was intentional to make the team leaders vulnerable. She confirms his understanding, stating that it would indeed disrupt the team's formation if the leader were absent. She advises him to be cautious as tomorrow is the test, emphasizing that he shouldn't train alone to avoid any embarrassing scenarios where a clan heir is disqualified for failing to pass the second test. She leaps away, leaving him to ponder her warning. He reflects that she, the weakest among them, dared to warn him, acknowledging that although she is overstepping boundaries, he cannot ignore her entirely. He considers whether he should bring Yahello along for added security. After a while, Nano Machine informs him that it has become late in the evening as he sits on the floor, breathing heavily. He inquires about the percentage of matches he has won against Kiam's avatar. Nano Machine responds that it is around 60%. He reflects on his initial expectation to beat it easily within a week, realizing he has only achieved a 60% success rate so far. Nano Machine adds that his practical ability and formation proficiency have significantly improved after 106 training sessions, estimating that he will likely achieve his goal in the next few days. He questions whether Nano Machine is trying to console him, expressing stiffness, but Nano Machine clarifies that it is an estimation based on analysis. He decides to head back to the quarters, but then hears the sounds of fighting. Quickly getting up, he runs toward the source, identifying the direction. He peers at a cadet and inquires about their identity, struggling to see clearly in the darkness, noticing someone on the ground as well. He commands Nano to activate night vision mode. Nano Machine complies, stating that night vision mode is being activated on the user's eyes. Utilizing night vision, he identifies the cadet as Kiam. He wonders if Kiam was attacked by the masked assailant. Suddenly, the masked individual kicks Kiam. He realizes that the masked person's movements are formidable, pondering their identity. As the masked figure moves to stab Kiam, he gazes at them, torn between reluctance to aid Kiam and the obligation to prevent harm to the team leader on the eve of their test, urging the assailant to stop. He charges towards the masked man, delivering a powerful punch that sends him staggering back. He realizes that the masked man skillfully widened the distance between them just before his attack landed, indicating expertise beyond his estimation. The masked man swiftly retreats behind the trees, vanishing from sight. He contemplates abandoning the chase, acknowledging the futility of pursuing him further. Turning his attention to Kiam, he inquires about his well-being. Kiam questions how he could accept assistance from someone like him. He offers a smile in response, teasingly suggesting that he leave him behind. The scene shifts to the Motto House quarters where Woon arrives, carrying Yahello on his shoulder, unconscious, and Kiam in a worse condition. Some cadets quickly approach them, expressing concern and asking what happened and if Woon is alright. He assures them that he will explain later and urges them to treat the injured first. Hyobong arrives and asks if Woon is injured, to which he responds by refusing and insisting that he's fine, so they shouldn't worry. He examines Yahello and inquires with Nano Machine about his condition. Nano Machine reports that the injury is assumed to be a 4 cm stab wound, 2 mm in depth, and suggests that stitching after disinfection should resolve the issue without major problems. He concludes that Yahello's injury is manageable and walks away, while a cadet approaches Kiam, noting the significant bleeding. He observes him and realizes he hadn't paid much attention to him earlier due to Yahello's condition, noting his paleness and the amount of blood he has lost. The cadet instructs Hyobong to call the leader urgently, to which he agrees and rushes off. After a while, they lay him down on the bed and apply bandages to his wound. A cadet inquires about his condition, and the doctor responds that they managed to treat him with the available resources, but wonders if there are any concerns. He realizes that the individual won't be able to walk normally for a while. Kiam expresses frustration about the situation caused by the masked person, while the cadets discuss what they should do next, noting that they have a test tomorrow, but their leader is injured. A cadet offers to take Yahello to the infirmary, and Woon intervenes, saying they have another wounded person present. Hyobong insists that he should carry the wounded individual, but Woon declines, stating that he will take care of it himself. He then calls for Instructor Impyong, informing him that they have another injured person. Instructor Impyong responds that he anticipated Woon's actions. Woon questions if it was done deliberately, to which Instructor Impyong confirms, explaining that he didn't want the team to suffer due to the impending test. He instructs them to pass along the other wounded individuals and return to their dormitories, reminding them that cadets shouldn't wander at this hour. Woon complies with his instructions and acknowledges his understanding. He ponders how all of this transpired, considering the possibility that one of their opposing teams in tomorrow's test may be responsible. He contemplates that it could be a cunning strategy to pass the test without direct involvement. Observing some black ants attacking a red ant together, he reflects on how they united to eliminate a formidable foe, thus avoiding significant losses. He considers the notion that perhaps they intended to make them suspect the opposing teams intentionally. Meanwhile, he contemplates that if they are to devise the best tactics to pass the second test, it implies that there are no rules they must adhere to strictly. In a room, a cadet remarks to his friend that they are in trouble, expressing the belief that their team has lost all hope. He suggests that it might be better to forfeit, prompting a surprised response from his friend. At that moment, Chen Yo-woon enters the room. Observing them, he states that evidently they need to select a new leader for tomorrow's test, so there's no use in continuing to complain. Curious about their next steps, one of the cadets, Hyobong, responds that only Prince Mu-kyum has the necessary experience for that role. Another cadet interjects, suggesting that their leader should be his master, Prince Chen Yo-woon, since he too is a prince. Cadet 83 raises his hand in agreement, and two other cadets also express their support. He mentions that Prince Chen Yo-woon even won a fight against Prince Mu-kyum. Another cadet acknowledges the truth of this statement and expresses support as well. A cadet inquires about their next course of action. He responds that he doesn't believe they will pass the test without a leader and emphasizes that passing the test is their priority. He notes that he has received support for his candidacy as leader from all of them. He expresses his appreciation for their agreement and mentions that he already has a plan in mind. The scene shifts to around 3 in the morning at the 8th team dormitory, where all team members are asleep in their beds as Chen Yo-woon enters his room. He instructs Nano Machine to activate night vision. Nano Machine complies, stating activating night vision protocol. He leaps up and perches on the roof, surveying all the cadets. He hadn't anticipated finding the main window of the 7th dormitory open and wonders if someone is still awake. Nano Machine announces commencing room analysis and reports that all 20 people in the room are asleep. He decides to keep it that way and instructs Nano Machine to see if it can identify the person who attacked Chin Mu-kyum. Nano Machine begins facial recognition, but it fails, stating facial recognition failure, no match found among them. He thinks, well, let's get to work then. This is their leader as he approaches a cadet who wakes up and asks who he is and why he is here. He quickly applies some needle skills, causing the cadet to faint. He thinks, damn, he nearly woke everyone up. He should start working right away. With this needle, they'll partially solve their problems. He believes he's targeting the 20 vital points. This will immobilize the cadet for the next few days. He begins needling all over the cadet's body quickly. He doesn't want to hurt them, but he does want to pass these tests. He considers it good. Let's get out of here and head to the 5th team dormitory now. If he's not mistaken, their leader is Chun Wonryu. He realizes the masked person was certainly not female. In that case, he had better go to the 6th team first. He thinks, let's see if he can find the masked guy among them. The Nano Machine confirms that all 16 cadets are asleep, and then he questions why he said there are 16. He contemplates that even with 3 girls sleeping in the girls' dorm, one is missing, and instructs the Nano Machine to initiate facial recognition. The Nano Machine responds with failure, unable to find a match. Meanwhile, he ponders that the missing cadet is not here, and he recalls thinking the masked man was one of the leaders. What should he do now? Reflecting further, he realizes there is no rule prohibiting injuring the leader. He resolves to find him one way or another, thinking an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. In the morning, Jin Yo-woon puts his hand in the box for a card, while Lee Hwa Myung looks at him and thinks he's the leader. This implies that Chin Mu-kyum is injured, and the second test will most definitely be amusing. He asks the cadets if they are all ready. They all confirm while he reiterates that he knows they have braced themselves for the test, and he hopes they'll follow the rules. He wishes them all good luck. Chin Yo-woon and his team members ask what he means by following the rules. He thinks that Guy has been behaving strangely and orders the Nano Machine to activate facial recognition. The Nano Machine comments on the protocol and informs that the target's profile matches 100% with the masked man as it scans a person's details. He thinks he finally found him. Meanwhile, the second round of testing begins when Lee Hwa Myung announces that they will start with Team 1 versus Team 3. The team that overpowers the other will be declared the winner, and he orders them to begin. Chun Mayan, the squad leader of Team 1, commands a Formation 3 attack. Lee Hwa Myung remarks on the unusual strategy, and both teams charge towards each other to attack. Jin Mayan instructs his team to keep moving forward and launches a fierce attack on the other group, stabbing their leader. A cadet urges them to retreat, but the leader falls down. Jin Mayan points his sword toward him and declares checkmate, advising him to give up before he gets hurt. The leader agrees and surrenders. Lee Hwa Myung observes the scene and thinks the match ended quickly, noting the incomparable strengths of the teams. He declares Team 1 as the winner, congratulating them on passing the second test. He announces the second match, Team 5 versus Team 8, and asks both teams to get ready. Jin Yo-woon thinks finally their turn has come, but notices that they seem afraid as he looks at his teammates. He wonders what's wrong with them and asks if they are afraid. He acknowledges that they may all be anxious since things changed too quickly, but he intends to pass this test. He warns them that otherwise, they will be expelled from the demonic academy. He expresses his desire to become one of the strongest in the academy with its mystifying history, asking if this isn't also their dream. He asserts that they can't allow themselves to lose today and suggests they shout together with him, "Viva la victory!" Lee Hwa Myung looks at him and thinks that even if he managed to boost his squad's morale, it isn't enough for him to win. Shin Yo-woon contemplates whether he will be the prey or the hunter. Lee Hwa Myung declares that the team that overpowers the others will be the winner, and the squads begin to fight. Shin Yo-woon looks at Chun Won-ryu, the squad leader of Team 5, and thinks he was hoping to fight Shin Mu-kyun, but he has to fight this mixed-blood person instead. He resolves that even if he doesn't have Nigong, he won't hold back anymore, while she orders her team to attack. Shin Yo-woon and his team block their attacks, and he orders the Nano machine to activate the tutorial. The Nano machine activates the battle tutorial and scans all the enemies. Nano machine confirms that it has activated the battle tutorials as ordered, while he instructs his team to stay in position. Chun Won-ryu orders Formation 2 and implements another strategy, while the Nano machine alerts that the opposing team has changed its formation and is preparing to launch a lance-shaped attack. He thinks that as he suspected, they would immediately lose if they attacked from the front. Quickly, he implements Formation 6, the straight line formation, while her team adopts the diagonal formation. Lee Hwa Myung questions why they are using a straight line formation, calling it a stupid choice. He thinks that this formation is only possible if the leader isn't armed, and he must be deluded to believe that this boy was trained by that old drunkard. She challenges how he dares to face her as she charges to attack Jin Yo-woon, and they both attempt to defeat each other while he blocks her attack. She wonders how he blocked it and thinks he injected Nigong into his shield. Lee Hwa Myung looks at him surprisingly and wonders how he is holding on for so long. Shin Yo-woon thinks that since he has absorbed the Dragon Ball, he should have higher Nigong than Chun Won-ryu now, and everything is going as planned. She thinks that the team's formation will break at this rate and curses, wondering how he got so strong. She jumps back, thinking they should retreat, and orders them to switch to Formation 1. Nano Machine informs him that the opponent has changed positions, and they have switched to Formation 1. He quickly tells his teammates to move and orders a switch to Formation. She smiles, thinking he is using Formation 3, and wonders if he really thinks he can defeat them like how Team 1 did with Team 3. She believes that even with high Nigong, he won't be able to do anything against their tactics. Chun Won-ryu employs Formation 6 because she thinks that with this tactic, he has no hope. He won't be able to move freely because of his companions on the sides, thus his movements are limited. He runs towards her to attack, while she thinks that coming straight at her is a stupid move. Shin Yo-woon runs to attack with his teammates, while her teammates ask what the hell they are trying to do. She says they are changing formations and tells her teammates not to panic. He orders his teammates to change their formation now and switch to Formation 2. While she wonders what Formation 2 means and shouts, "That's Formation 2, be careful." Her team members say they're being attacked from behind and even from the sides. Meanwhile, she wonders just what they are thinking and asks why they have surrounded them when they don't have any escape routes. She thinks he has messed with her, and he says to listen to him carefully. Tomorrow, they have to exploit the knowledge of the formation that all the teams have leaders to their advantage. When he shouts Formation 2, they'll surround them. This will confuse them, and they won't have enough time to react. That will be their chance. She thinks he fooled her. How dare this mixed blood person, while her team members get scared and drop their shields. She shouts asking what they are doing and tells them to pick up their shields right now. She thinks she doesn't want to hear the voice of the men who only laughed at her because she's a woman and abuses him, saying he will never give up. She attacks him with her full power and all skills, throwing his shield away. He also counterattacks with his skills, cutting her hand and leg. He continues to attack, cutting her hand, while everyone becomes shocked and she screams in pain, saying her hand hurts. A cadet comes to her and says to stay still. He'll stop the bleeding, while she cries that it hurts. Chin Yo-woon looks at her and wonders if he has done the right thing. He thinks her goal is to block his blows and force him to surrender. She says she'll kill him, while he thinks that it seems he still has to train with the sword. Lee Hwa Myung raises his hand and declares the battle finished, announcing Team 8 as the winner. Chin Yo-woon says they did it, and it's all thanks to their new leader. Lee Hwa Myung thinks this guy is not bad. Besides his high Nigong, he was able to use some really interesting techniques. He wonders if that drunkard really taught it to him, and in such a short time, he managed to master and use Nigong perfectly, not to mention his strategies. He thinks he underestimated him too much and regrets not being able to take him in as his pupil. Perhaps they're facing a genius of martial arts. Chin Yo-woon's team members whisper that he used incredible tactics and ask if it wasn't amazing. Hyo-bong blushes with excitement and asks if they see him, their prince, thinking about how far he will go. Lee Hwa Myung announces that the third battle is about to begin, instructs the teams to step forward, and tells them to start. They all move forward. Chin Yo-woon thinks he never would have imagined he could avoid his attack, and even counter-attack him, while Chin Mukyoon thinks he played them and abused them. He thinks he kept his real potential a secret, observing the rascal's laughter and smile as he looks at Chin Yo-woon. He sees his teammates and says that if they attack them directly, they will win easily. He says they will use Formation 6, while his team members ask if he is serious, as the opponents are heading towards them at full speed, and he asks if they are crazy. Baek-gi uses Formation 2 and orders them to hold positions. He laughs and says why are they using Formation 2? Do they want to die? While they run to attack them and stab Baek-gi. Members of Team 7 say they are being pushed back and instruct to suppress them all, saying not to let any of them stand back up. Chin Mukyoon looks at Chin Yo-woon and thinks he's next, cursing that it seems like he has made quite an annoying enemy. An announcement informs them of the results of the second test, round 3 between Team 6 and Team 7, with Team 6 winning. The scene shifts to Mado House's main hall, specifically the first floor academy owner's office, where Lee Hwa Myung sits with some cadets. Ho Jin Chang enters and hands him some documents, saying this is the list of the failed participants and their grades up to Team 5. He takes the documents and remarks there's a lot failed this time too. Ho Jin Chang asks if he is referring to the higher clans. Meanwhile, Lee Hwa Myung states that those without clans only aim to become guards of the high or middle class clans, so it doesn't matter. However, the heirs of the higher clans might feel wronged. He adds that they would have made it to the third round if it wasn't for the group test. Something like this wouldn't have happened if they had followed the same rules as in the old Demonic Academy guide. Ho Jin Chang says it can't be helped. If they don't reassign the failed participants positions and duties reflecting their performance, the higher clans will protest against him. He replies that the higher clans will thrive with their own respective clans' martial arts, but it's unfortunate that the middle and lower clans lost their chance at obtaining the medicine ball and entering the precious library. He adds on another note that the ones who passed the second test must all be gathered at the precious library now. The scene shifts to Mado House's precious library, where Chin Yo-woon arrives and looks at the building, remarking, "This is the precious library. It seems more grand than the main hall of the Mado House." He thinks that the other cadets have already been to the first floor while he was in the infirmary, so does that mean today is the second floor? He looks at the other cadets. Siab Meng says he put his all into mastering the butterfly sword technique and the spring dance breathing method of the butterfly dance without spending his time on useless stuff. He needs to do that to increase his chances of passing the test. He replies that's useless stuff and asks if he means the precious library. Siab Meng confirms and says he's already learning martial arts on the 4th and 5th floors and thanks his teacher for that, so he shouldn't be disheartened that he wasn't able to go to the first floor of the library. Siab Meng says there's nothing that can even come closer to his martial arts there anyway and smiles. Chin Yo-woon looks at him and wonders about what he said, but he has a nano machine, and he'll scan as much as he can from both the first and second floors. After some time he goes to the precious library's first floor, where Chin Yo-woon remarks that it's his first time seeing so many books in his life and notes that, as expected, he's the only one on the first floor. He thinks they are only given 2 house floors and he needs to hurry, telling Nano that he's going to flick through the precious books, so keep scanning. Nano Machine agrees and says understands, starting to scan 5 arts of blade mastery while he holds a book and flips its pages. Nano Machine informs him that the scan is complete. He takes out another book, and Nano Machine tells him that the scan is starting. After a few seconds, he says the scan is complete, then he scans some other books there. After a while, he takes another book from there and wonders how much time is left. Nano Machine replies that he has 1 hour remaining. He considers how many books he has scanned so far, and Nano Machine replies that including sword mastery, blade mastery, breathing techniques, etc. He has scanned a total of 55 books. He thinks not to send those to his brain yet. It seems like he has only looked at the outer border books. Nano Machine replies that he understands. He wonders if he should try the inner shelves too, while he looks at a pillar where Ho Jin Chang sits nearby. Ho Jin Chang thinks he seems quite the expert and wonders if he's the warrior who directs the first floor of the library. He wonders why there is a gravestone in the middle of the library anyway. Ho Jin Chang looks at him while he tries to sneak out and thinks that this is the gravestone that was left behind by the main academy's founder, the Heavenly Demon Ancestor. He looks at him and asks surprisingly what the Heavenly Demon Ancestor is. Ho Jin Chang explains that he carved it into sapphire. He examines the gravestone and notices there's a poem written here, so he reads it. He wonders what this is and says this was carved in with a finger. Ho Jin Chang asks if it is not amazing and explains that the ancestor focused his nigong into his finger to write on the sapphire, something that's hard to scratch, even with a sword and a large amount of nigong. Ho Jin Chang explains that people are normally too focused on trying to read books, so they don't pay attention to this, but he found the ancestor's mighty trace, maybe because he's his bloodline. He replies that he almost walked past it as well, while Ho Jin Chang says that's to be expected. Who would pay attention to a gravestone like this that the ancestor wrote a poem into, when there are all these books around? He says he has been protecting this place for over 20 years, but no one has ever paid attention to this gravestone, including the descendant of the heavenly family. He adds that anyway, it has taken up a lot of his time, so they should continue with what they were doing. Chin Yo-woon replies that he understands and wonders what that is. He notices traces of sharp objects on the back of it, as if they're hiding something. He calls Nano Machine to analyze the traces. Nano Machine starts analyzing the surface of the gravestone and after some time tells him that the analysis is complete. Nano Machine says that according to the analysis, they are traces left by the sharp blade of a sword. He asks what they mean by a trace of a sword and who would do something like this to the Heavenly Demon Ancestor's gravestone. Meanwhile, Nano Machine responds that according to the analysis of the depths of the traces, it can be seen that 2 people left these traces. He asks who those 2 people are and realizes he can't discern them by just looking at them like this. He instructs Nano Machine to show the sword traces to him in 3-dimensional augmented reality. Nano Machine replies, operating augmented reality in the user's vision, and he sees the traces. Observing the stark differences in strength and angle between each sword stroke, he realizes it's easy to overlook the fact that these traces were left by 2 people. He wonders if they tried to conceal the original scarring by layering it in a disorderly fashion on top. He asks if Nano Machine can differentiate between the 2 people's sword traces. He instructs Nano Machine to get rid of the sword traces, except for the original ones. Nano Machine confirms that it understood. He concludes that these weren't just normal sword traces, but rather a sword movement comprising untold formations. Chin Yo-woon acknowledges that he can't discern the nature of the movement solely from the current observation, indicating a gap in his understanding. He inquires with Nano Machine whether it can analyze these sword traces and simulate them as an augmented video. Nano Machine confirms this possibility, but mentions that knowing the hardness of the sapphire is necessary to analyze the person's strength. He queries about the concept of hardness and its function. Ho Jin Chang arrives and questions why he isn't reading books. Attempting to interject, Ho Jin Chang mentions observing the back of the stone, remarking on its chaotic state, and reflecting on the rumors surrounding the heavenly demon ancestor, leaving a sword technique of his epiphany there. He then seeks clarification on the heavenly demon ancestor's epiphany. Meanwhile, Ho Jin Chang speculates on the motives behind the damage to the back of the object, suggesting it might have been done to restrict access to the ancestor's epiphany. He gazes at Chen Yo-woon, pondering whether the traces are merely acts of vandalism. Ho Jin Chang announces his departure to make rounds, advising Chen Yo-woon to explore further before he leaves. He internally expresses relief at the supervisor's departure. Nano Machine responds that the hardness of the sapphire can be determined by placing hands on the surface. He complies and scans his hands, while Nano Machine reports the completion of the hardness investigation. The hardness of diamond, set as the standard with a value of 10, reveals that the sapphire has a hardness of 7. He contemplates the difficulty of the task and ponders who might have distorted the original sword traces with their own. Nano Machine explains that, based on the analysis of the stone's hardness, the sword traces are being simulated as an augmented video. Subsequently, a holographic figure materializes before him, prompting him to inquire about its identity. Nano Machine responds that it cannot engage in conversation. He questions whether the hologram just attacked him, to which Nano Machine clarifies that the sword trace simulation is commencing. The holographic figure begins practicing swordplay. Observing the movements, he wonders if they constitute a single movement, while Nano Machine explains that the analysis indicates all the formations are interconnected, constituting one movement according to his martial arts perspective. Surprised, he reflects on the complexity of the analysis, even comparing it to the intricate butterfly sword technique composed of 8 formations. He reflects on the complexity of the technique, acknowledging that it took him half a year to master a similar one, yet this surpasses it by far. He deems it impossible to negate this technique and expresses surprise at encountering such an opportunity on the first floor of the library, despite having low expectations. Requesting Nano Machine to preserve the movement from earlier for later transfer, he receives confirmation from Nano Machine. Reflecting on how he could have easily overlooked this treasure due to the messy sword traces, he contemplates the identity of the perpetrator, considering them to be quite malevolent. Despite this, he realizes that he alone has gained access to this movement and perhaps should be grateful. Nano Machine reports that after cleaning up the traces, they have discovered 45 interconnected movements through analysis. He inquires about the findings, to which Nano Machine responds that 45 movements have been identified through analysis. He realizes that the traces were not meant to conceal the technique, but rather represent distinct sword movements. Considering this, he suggests simulating the sword movements sequentially as an augmented video. Nano Machine confirms understanding and initiates the simulation, displaying the first sword movement followed by the 2nd, 10th, 20th, 30th, and so forth. He observes the increasingly flawless execution of the movements. Nano Machine announces the completion of the augmented video simulation. He then asks Nano Machine if it can pit the initially saved sword movement against the 45th sword movement in a simulated battle through augmented video. Nano Machine confirms its feasibility and activates battle mode in the augmented video, initiating a duel between the two holograms. He observes them and realizes that it has been nullified, with the first movement appearing almost perfect except for one formation. He concludes that the intention wasn't just to erase the previous movements. Rather, the 45 sword traces represent the extensive effort to nullify the original movement. He summons Ho Jin Chang and informs him that he has a question, asking if the sapphire gravestone is exclusive to the first floor. Ho Jin Chang responds that he has only worked on the first floor, so he isn't certain, but he has heard that there's one on every floor. He decides to proceed to the second floor and instructs Nano Machine to prepare for their journey. The scene transitions to the second floor of the Motto House's prestigious library, where Chen Yo-woon arrives. He observes other cadets and concludes that they are not finished yet, surmising that since it took 2 hours to reach the first floor, it must take 3 hours to reach the second floor. He identifies a cadet as Chin Yu-chan from the Sword Clan and notes that other clan heirs did not bother to come here, likely due to their overconfidence in their own clan's martial arts. He considers Chin Yu-chan to be a cautious individual for studying low-level martial arts and decides to be more vigilant around him compared to others. He locates the gravestone and confirms his suspicions, noticing that the surface is entirely covered with sword traces. He instructs Nano Machine to analyze the sword traces on the second floor, similar to what it did on the first floor. Nano Machine confirms understanding, identifying the same sword traces as those found on the first floor. He elaborates that the first sword trace comprises 24 formations, while the traces left by the other person consist of 56 sword movements. He wonders why 56 movements are necessary and speculates that more research was conducted to nullify the original movement compared to the first floor. He expresses the desire to check it immediately, but acknowledges the challenge due to the presence of many observers. He instructs Nano Machine to extract and save only the sword movements. Nano Machine acknowledges the command, and he anticipates acquiring 4 exceptional movements, eagerly awaiting the transfer to his brain and body. He then instructs Nano Machine to commence the scan. The cadets sit and read books, casting glances at him while whispering about his actions. Another cadet remarks that it's difficult to learn anything by reading each word slowly, yet he's just skimming through everything. Chin Yu-chan disagrees, emphasizing the need to focus, while another cadet dismisses the importance of paying attention to him, citing the limited time they have left. Chin Yo-woon selects a book from the shelf and scans it, prompting Nano Machine to announce the completion of the scan. Chin Yu-chan observes Chin Yo-woon flipping pages rapidly before returning the book to the shelf. Nano Machine reports that a total of 156 books have been scanned thus far. He instructs Nano Machine to analyze all the books scanned today and save the data to the program. Nano Machine acknowledges his command, and he thinks this should suffice. Now the only task remaining is to recall Xiao Meng's advice about the original butterfly sword technique being among the top 10 martial arts in the main academy. However, he reminds himself not to be overly confident regardless of his martial arts skills. He reflects on the importance of exceptional understanding and the necessity of practicing formations and movements hundreds and thousands of times to master martial arts properly. Moreover, he emphasizes the significance of experience, citing his teacher's own hardships and challenges in understanding martial arts through battles with enemies. He reflects that the Academy offers a valuable opportunity to gain experience by engaging in combat with individuals from different clans and those without affiliations. Returning to the present, he considers that all that remains is to test Nano's augmented reality ability. If everything goes as planned, he will be able to gain diverse hands-on experience. The supervisor finishes writing and informs him that he can leave. Chin Yo-woon acknowledges this and states that he understands, then exits. The supervisor calls him back, mentioning that someone had inquired about his return. He asks for forgiveness while turning to face